A pregnant woman, covered in blood, is giving birth to a baby. She trembles as she notices her hand has already been bitten by a zombie. Behind her is a horde of zombies, so she tears a piece of cloth and bites down on it to avoid making any noise. Suddenly, her pupils start dilating. Her hands start growing monstrous nails, and even her teeth begin to grow out of her face. And outside, the area is already filled with zombies. Some people are screaming, some are running, and some are being torn apart by zombies. A paper shows that this is caused by the zombie virus, which has transformed people into monsters. Half of the world has been taken over by zombies. Every day, more and more people are killed by zombies and are turning into one of them. Now, 7 years have passed. The baby that was born in the midst of this chaos grew up as a normal human being. However, her mother transformed into a bloodthirsty monster due to the virus. The daughter now spends every day in fear, hiding in her own house because she is frequently chased by her zombie mother. Once again, she is hiding, but her mother finds her with her keen sense of smell. Her mother opens her mouth, ready to bite. She can't escape as her mother is holding her tightly, and then she bites her. The daughter screams, but it turns out that her mother is just acting. She was actually playing hide and seek with her. Even though her mom had turned into a zombie, there was still a bit of her human side left, all because of her daughter named Chuck Bach. She really cared about Chuck Bach. For instance, whenever Chuck Bach wanted to go outside with her, her mom would always say no, even if Chuck Bach begged a lot. It was because there were still many zombies outside, and her mom wanted to keep her safe. To make sure Blessing stayed inside, her mom would give her a scary look. Even though her mother can't talk, she writes messages on her hand to show that she is worried about her. This time, when her mom was getting ready to go out, Blessing asked her to come back home quickly because it's dangerous outside. And her mom smiled. Right after she left her house, she met a monster with a long neck. In the next moment, its long tongue came straight at her. She quickly moved her body to dodge it skillfully. Then, a spike slowly came out from the back of her head. She attacked the monster swiftly. In no time, she pierced the tough skin of the monster and it shivered without reacting. Now, the monster fell down heavily, completely knocked out. Looking at the fallen monster, she felt hungry and drooled a little, but she realized the monster tasted really bad. Despite her hunger, she could only eat a little bit. While she was eating, she heard gunshots behind her. 2 humans were shooting at a group of zombies that were coming towards them. These monsters seemed to be afraid of the light. As the man directed his flashlight towards them, they were instantly petrified. But the number of approaching monsters was increasing, and their situation was becoming dire. The woman observed them and pondered, how could there be survivors out here at this hour? Don't they realize that using a weak light and firing bullets will only provoke the monsters further? However, she didn't really care if they lived or died. Suddenly, she noticed something familiar about the long-haired man's backpack. She then rushed towards him. The long-haired man quickly realized she might be trouble, so he turned on his flashlight and pointed it at the woman. But she moved really fast and kicked the man in red hair. He fell down, and seeing this, his friend told the woman to step aside, holding a shaky pistol. He didn't realize that this would completely anger the woman. However, she didn't hurt him, she simply took the bag and leave him alone. After the woman left, the long-haired man felt really scared as the zombies were getting closer. But suddenly, they stopped moving. Seeing this, the man smiled surprisingly and wondered if he might be immune to the zombies somehow. Just as he thought he was safe, a few drops of water fell on his head, and he realized the monster was dripping saliva, eager to devour him. Now we meet a man named Gomdal, who lost his weapons. Even more unlucky, his bag was stolen too. With only a broken stone in his hands, he didn't know how long he could endure. Just when he was ready to give up, suddenly he heard footsteps approaching towards him. In the next moment, a sharp needle appeared in his neck. Looking closer, he saw it was his wife. She roared at him and stared at the face in front of her. Because after the mutation, she couldn't remember him, but she seemed to recall something. Just when the man thought his wife would kill him, she surprised him by giving him a hug. And she had his stolen bag packed too. After a short rest, they were prepared to go home. But the path is filled with zombies. In a flashback from 7 years ago, we see Gomdal with his backpack, cautiously searching for food while fearing monster attacks if he ventures deeper. He has a torch and a gun for protection, and he decides to continue despite his fears. As he goes further, he finds the body of a dead monster, likely killed by another monster. He senses another monster in a nearby room but thinks of turning back. However, his curiosity is piqued when he hears a baby crying from that room, and he approaches there. Suddenly, a sharp needle is pressed against his throat. Looking closely, he sees a blood-covered monster. He realizes she's breastfeeding, and we learn that this is the same woman who struggled to give birth at the beginning of this story. This is how the woman met her husband. Back in the present, Gomdal and his zombie wife make their way home, and she uses the spikes on her head to wipe away any monsters that come in their way. The couple has to escape from the approaching zombies, so they hurry down a narrow hallway. Gomdal uses its torch to temporarily scare off the zombies. Suddenly, both of them reach a point where they can't go any further. In front of them stood a tall, broken skyscraper that was extremely high. The flashlight they had stopped working just then. More and more monsters were getting closer, so they had to get rid of them. The man lifted his gun to fight the monsters alongside his wife, but in the blink of an eye, something grabbed him unexpectedly. The woman saw this scene and ignored the zombies in front of her. To save her husband, she clutched the bear tightly and grabbed onto the steel bars of the building. But the thing pulling the man was too strong, and he thought his leg might get torn apart. As the Gomdal looked down, he started sweating with fear. A giant monster was pulling on his foot with its tentacles and wouldn't let go. The monster couldn't resist salivating at the food in front of it. However, the Gomdal above screamed in fear as the tentacles around his feet tightened. More zombie monsters approached the woman. The two people holding hands began to shake. If this situation continues, they will surely meet their end here. Suddenly, the woman released her grip on the steel bar. The monster below pulled them down swiftly. Gomdal was confused by this, but the woman gave a strange smile. The monster below continued licking its tongue. Now, the two are getting closer to the monster's mouth. Just when it looked like the monster might eat them, the woman quickly used a sharp needle to strike the monster above. This pulled one of the zombie downward, and she swiftly hurled it at the giant monster's head below. Then, she jabbed the sharp needle into the monster's tongue, which was tied to her husband's feet. Feeling the pain, the monster let go. Seeing this, the woman felt a huge sense of relief. They planned to deal with the other monsters after landing safely. But suddenly, her husband grabbed her tightly, making her feel happy. A bit later, they both fell heavily on the monster's head, which surprised the zombies standing there. They bounced away and rolled on the ground for a while. The man got up quickly, carried his wife, and ran without stopping. Angry monsters watched as their meal got away. The couple talked about their injuries while running and were relieved that neither of them was hurt. As the woman was thinking about her kind husband, the monster's sharp horns suddenly stabbed her body. The Gomdal witnessed the scene and shouted, "Honey, are you alright?" When he looked back, he realized that his wife was under attack by the same monster they had encountered earlier. The monster was drooling and seemed eager for a meal. However, the monster was unaware that the woman, who had undergone a strange transformation, had become powerful. The injury inflicted by the monster was just a scratch for her, but the zombies behind her kept attacking and following. As a man rummaged through his bag and the zombies kept coming to attack, the woman suppressed her pain and quickly used a needle, eliminating several monsters that were approaching her. Finally, the Gomdal found what he was looking for and threw it towards the zombies. Suddenly, a grenade materialized, and before the zombies could do anything, it exploded and blew them up. The bear used more grenades to get rid of the rest. All the zombies chasing them were instantly destroyed. Only a single zombie with injured hands struggled on. However, the huge monster was still behind them, and the bear was left with only one grenade. His wife asked him to give it to her. She quickly dashed towards the front with the grenade in hand. The monster saw her and extended its arm toward them. Sensing the danger, Bear instructed his wife to dodge as he quickly dropped to the ground. But the woman didn't dodge. Instead, she turned to confront the monster. Gomdal got really mad and yelled at his wife, "What on earth are you doing? You're too far from it to hit it." But the next second, the woman took off the grenade's safety, all the while the Gomdal watched in horror. She then threw it into the air and kicked it forcefully toward the monster. The monster looked puzzled as the grenade came towards it, then it caught the grenade in its mouth. Without reacting, its head exploded in an instant. The woman landed safely and boldly showed her finger to the defeated monsters. After witnessing her smart and strong act, her husband said, "Nice, that's my wife." He rushed toward her with a smile. Now, both of them started running before more zombies could arrive. After reaching a safe place, Gomdal asked his wife to lift her clothes to check her injury because he was worried about her. However, the wound caused by the monster had already healed, so the man was relieved that his wife was no longer in danger. They finally reached the door of their home, where their daughter was waiting for them. Gomdal called her name. When she heard her dad, she rushed to them, giving him a hug and rubbing his cheek. She also showed him her finished homework. Her dad was really proud and happy, so he gave her gifts he bought for her. He even gave her a chocolate bar, her favorite treat. She smiled and said, "You're the best daddy." The woman watched her family happily. Even though she was tired, she felt so strong. She promised to always protect her family and hugged them with joy. In a world full of zombies, the three formed a happy family. The man not only had a smart wife but also a lovely daughter. Meanwhile, a stranger was standing outside their door. While having a meal, they watched their daughter enjoy her food. The daughter offered her dad a bite of her meal and he happily accepted. But when she offered some to her mom, she didn't take it. The dad explained that mommy was full. This confused the daughter as she had never seen her mom eat before. Although she couldn't speak, the mother always wrote down her thoughts. She wanted her daughter to eat well and grow healthy. The daughter often wondered about what her mother eats. To find out, she offered a most delicious cookie to her mom. At first, her mom hesitated and said she couldn't eat such things. But upon seeing her daughter's innocent and adorable expression, she reached out carefully to take a bite. Seeing this, the daughter took the snack back and broke off a small piece, handing it to her mother with a smile. The daughter was taken aback when her mother looked at her with a helpless expression. Her father then came over and asked her to share a bite with him. Instead of sharing, she rushed to put the cookie in her mouth, thinking her mother might be able to eat other things. She brought her noodles and then some sugar that Blessing usually ate. Her mother seemed bothered by all the fuss and suddenly let out an unexpected roar. This startling scene brought tears to the daughter's eyes. She felt sorry seeing her mother's distressed expression. Just as her mother was about to tell the truth and stop hiding things, something changed. Her mother's pupils dilate. The daughter's nose was bleeding, and she was confused about what was happening with her mom. Suddenly, her mother transformed into a bloodthirsty monster upon seeing the blood, and it seemed like she might harm her own child. But before anything happened, the mother quickly opened the door and ran outside. Upon hearing the noise, the father quickly checked on his daughter. Seeing her nosebleed, he understood what might have happened. At that moment, the woman had come outside and coincidentally met another scary woman. Just as the scary woman smiled and faced her opponent, the woman's arm went through her body. She then used sharp nails to tear the opponent apart and ate the pieces of her body one by one. She did all this while enjoying a tasty meal and thinking about protecting her daughter. In her mind, she struggled with thoughts like, I can't eat my own family. I need to wake up now. But the sweet taste is so strong and tempting. Thinking about kids' skin and flesh makes me hungry. Battling these thoughts, the woman threw her head back and made a hissing sound that echoed in the air. Not much time passed. The mother came home and lay down in same bed with her family. As she watched her sleeping daughter, she thought, I never thought the smell of a child's blood would be so attractive to me. I need to stay focused and be careful, especially around monsters, to keep my family safe. Next morning, father left to get supplies and reminded the daughter not to wake her mother. Carrying his backpack, he left the house. Watching him go, the daughter smiled because she knew she could sneak out while her mother slept. Soon, she got ready to go outside. Humming a song, she walked down the street full of zombies, searching for useful things in the ruins. She also saw a man and a woman walk through the area. Afterward, she started drawing happy faces on rocks using colors. She then hurried to find food and things she could use. While digging in the ground, she found some candies. This brought her happiness, envisioning how her parents would be pleased and proud when she offered them the treats. The presence of zombies nearby didn't concern her. She felt no fear that they might harm her. Now, with excitement, she hurried back home, holding onto the candies tightly. Meanwhile, a man and a woman spot the girl wandering all alone and think that if they catch her, they'll be able to get a fortune in supplies. Without a second thought, they both chase after the girl. Soon enough, they spot her turning a corner. The woman notices and quickly swings a baseball bat at her. Suddenly, someone appears behind her male companion and attacks with an axe. The woman stops immediately upon hearing the sound and looks back. Her companion is already lying on the ground. Behind him stands a white-haired person with an axe. Her companion is severely injured and tries to tell her to run away from there but can't manage to utter the words properly. The woman is puzzled by this. She asks the white-haired person, "Who the heck are you?" But instead of answering, the person walks towards her. The woman smiles without a care and says, "Your eyes are scary. I'll look like you're going to kill me. Are you the guardian of that child? But I haven't done anything yet." With those words, she swings her baseball bat at her opponent. Right then, the white-haired woman feels that something is wrong. But when she turns around, she realizes that the man who had just fallen to the ground has disappeared. Apparently, while she was talking, the man had gone after the little girl. By now, the woman has swung her baseball bat in front of her. In an instant, she cuts off her neck and her head comes off from her body really fast. The attack happens so quickly. Meanwhile, the girl stays hidden in a corner, shaking because she's scared. Suddenly, the girl hears a familiar voice and turns her head to see the white-haired woman was standing behind her. It's her sister Hee-Ra. Just as Hee-Ra is about to ask how she got there, neither of them notices a hand gradually reaching towards the little girl. In the next moment, the monster aggressively opens its bloody mouth towards her. However, Hee-Ra swings an axe, hitting the monster's skull and causing it to crash heavily onto the ground. After struggling for a while, it retracts its head into its arm. Seeing this scene leaves the little girl in disbelief. On the other hand, Hee-Ra seemed used to it. She keeps asking the girl why she's alone out there and why her parents aren't with her. But the girl's mind is fixated on the monster's creepy hand, and she doesn't pay attention to what Hee-La is saying. As a result, Hee-Ra uses her hand to knock some sense into the girl. The girl silently agrees never to venture out alone without her parents again. Despite that, Hee-ra continues to talk, insisting that she should take her words to heart. Seeing her persistence, the girl has to respond, "I've grown up. I can go outside like an adult." Hearing this, Hee-ra gives her a stern look, and the girl breaks into a cold sweat for a moment. Hee-ra then changes her mind after seeing the girl's despondent expression. She tells her, "Okay, you're all grown up now. I'll take you to the place where the adults go." Hearing this, a big smile lights up the girl's face, and there's a gleam in her eyes. She holds Hee-ra's hand, and they walk towards that place. They reach the place Sister Hee-ra had talked about, but it was dark and had a bad smell. The girl said she wanted to go home and called out, but only echoes replied. Her voice scolded the girl from the darkness. "You wanted to come here, right? You're a grown-up, so why be scared? Monsters love dark places, but adults come here because we know we can find things we need, even if it's dangerous." The girl tried to find her sister in the dark and slipped, touching something sticky. Yuck, it was gross blood. She got scared and crawled ahead, saying sorry and not wanting to be an adult anymore. "Please take me home," the girl begged with tears. But her sister just watched from the dark. Looking ahead, the girl couldn't stop crying. She felt like she saw her parents, knowing they risked their lives to get supplies from places like this. She understood everything now. Hee-ra came close and said, "It's dark and stinky and you want to go home. Adults come here even if it's hard." The girl cried and said, "Grown-ups can be scared too, but they have no other choice than coming here to survive. I won't sneak out anymore." As she spoke, Sister Hee-ra reached out her hands to the girl and then said, "Let's go home." And now they walked away from that place. On the way, girl thinks that she had just seen a monster's blood, but she couldn't understand why she hadn't seen any monsters before. Sister Hee-ra said the monsters were asleep, but Hee-ra had already defeated the monsters before the girl could see them. Their heads were chopped off and piled up. One snowy day when it was super cold. In a spooky place, a young girl looked for food in trash cans. Zombies were all around her, but she wasn't scared because her parents were nearby. Her mom was like the boss of zombies in that area. Then, something strange caught her attention. She went closer and realized it was a person. This person had white hair and a dirty face, but the girl was curious. She went up and asked if the person was okay. The person whispered in a serious way for her to go away. The girl got scared because of the person's serious look. Even though she was just a kid, the girl didn't really understand what the person was saying. The person turned away and said to leave her alone and find her parents. The girl saw the person's freezing hands and tried to warm them with her own little hands. She blew air to make them warm. But the person didn't understand and kept telling her to stop. Suddenly, the person's other hand moved quickly toward the girl. The next moment, the person was rubbing the girl's warm face with her cold hand. This was how the girl and Sister Hee-ra first met. Remembering this, girl woke her up from her dreams. Yesterday, the girl was saved from some bad guys and got advice by her sister not to venture alone before going home. But when she opened her door, she saw something strange. Her finger was a bit purple. She looked at it and wondered why. When her parents found out, they hurried to the old hospital to find medicine. Her finger got poisoned by a zombie, and they needed medicine to stop her from turning into a zombie too. Even though it was daytime, there were still lots of zombies outside. But her parents were worried and still went out to search. Her mom was really worried, her hands were shaking, and she was sweating a lot. She felt bad, thinking it was her fault for sleeping in, and the girl went out. She blamed herself and worried a lot. Bear told her not to blame herself. He said feeling guilty wouldn't help the girl get better. They hadn't found medicine yet. Then he thought of something, Hope Village. He heard there might be a doctor there. The mom got hopeful, but the dad explained that they needed to pay or give something valuable to enter the village. They didn't have anything valuable because they didn't have money. The mom wasn't discouraged. She came up with a brave idea. She wanted to go to an underground village called Dungeon Village alone. She thought she might find something valuable there. The dad was worried, though. He said it was dangerous, even if she's a powerful zombie. But the mom was determined. She believed in her agility and skills to escape danger. But one thing she must avoid running into, and that's Master of Dungeon. She had been there before, so she knew the way to that village. The dad knew he couldn't change her mind. He had to stay at home with their daughter, waiting for the mom to come back safely. After that, the man went to his backpack to search for a flashlight and necessary items to give his wife before she leave. However, upon unzipping the backpack, both he and his wife were taken aback. Their daughter was sound asleep inside, emitting snoring sounds. Their hearts softened at the sight, but what frustrated them even more was that the girl suddenly woke up, looking like someone who hadn't gotten enough sleep. The woman, witnessing this scene, was overcome with anger, her frustration reaching a point where she felt like scolding her daughter right then and there. The girl was puzzled by her mother's abrupt change in mood. She thought her mother was playing a prank, so she quickly raised her hand in response. However, she was scolded by her father. He said, "Didn't I tell you to stay home properly? I warn you that these cloudy days often mean an increase in zombie activity." Following this, he tapped the girl's head. The irritated woman by his side hurriedly intervened to stop him. Soon after, she used her hand to communicate with her husband, writing that it was a good opportunity since our daughter was already outside. She instructed him to take her back home. With that settled, she got up and headed toward the underground village. But the girl followed her mother, asking, "Where are you going?" "I want to go with you." And with this, girl started crying. Seeing her daughter in such a state, the mother couldn't help but emit a roar of frustration, abruptly shaking off the girl's hand and striding forward towards Dungeon Village to get something valuable. While moving among the monsters, she hears a familiar voice behind her. She turns and sees a cardboard box on the ground, with different types of zombie monsters gathered around it. Their tongues were dripping saliva. The box seems to have delicious food. Suddenly, the box makes a strange noise that makes the woman uneasy as she recognizes the voice. The zombies pounce on the box, tearing it apart with their claws ready, yet they find nothing once the cardboard is torn. Relying on their strong sense of smell, the zombies quickly sense something unusual above them. Upon closer inspection, they notice a little girl hanging midair. The woman had heard her child's voice and swiftly brought her over. Unfortunately, both the mother and daughter are now surrounded by zombies. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, the agile woman springs into action from above. The hungry zombies can't let their potential meal slip away, so they rush to attack the mother and daughter. The woman, sensing the imminent danger, let out a fierce roar. The spike at the back of her head swung out smoothly, severing the threat. Then, she carefully lowered the girl to the ground. However, some of the zombies persisted in advancing towards them. Consequently, they were impaled halfway through their bodies by the mother's sharp claw. The remaining parts of their heads and limbs were sent flying through the air. Within moments, the mother was visibly panting. At this rate, she and her daughter would be consumed by the relentless onslaught. As the woman prepared to employ her last resort, the girl noticed a sudden clearing of the dark clouds in the sky. Upon hearing her shout, the zombies glanced upwards, but it was too late. The scorching rays of the sun caused them to howl in agony. The mother saw all of this and started sweating. After that, the woman hurried to the dungeon village, because it was the only safe place away from the zombies. But a zombie suddenly attacked the mother from behind. She cried out in pain, and the girl felt guilty, her eyes welling up with tears. If not for her, her mother wouldn't have been hurt. The zombie was laughing and attacking the mother's back. Surprisingly, the mother let herself get hit to ensure her daughter's quick escape from danger. All of a sudden, an axe struck the zombie's head, and it fell to the ground immediately. Not knowing where the axe came from, the mother quickly turned back to see. But when she saw the hungry zombies behind her, she hurriedly ran towards the dungeon village. In that instant, Gumdall arrived, his brow damp with sweat and breaths heavy. But upon witnessing the scene ahead, he stops in his tracks, his eyes locked on the blocked entrance to the underground village, obstructed by the zombies. Seeing this, he clenched his teeth in frustration. In a matter of seconds, he dropped to his knees, consumed by self-reproach. If only he hadn't been suddenly struck by a stomachache that made him rush to the bathroom after his wife had left. If only their daughter hadn't sneaked out, this might not have happened. Lost in his regrets, he didn't notice someone was behind him. He turned and see a white-haired woman. Just as Gumdall started to speak, asking who she was, an axe hit his face, stopping him in his tracks. On the opposite side, after finding a safe place, girl's mother scolded her. She said, "You knew I was worried, but you still followed me. What if something had happened?" Hearing this, the girl quickly wrote on her hand, "I was worried about you being in danger, so I came along, Mom. Even if Dad didn't say it, I know you both want me to grow up happy and healthy. Seeing you both come home hurt every day, bravely enduring the pain, it's hard. I don't want you to be hurt because of me anymore." When girl said that, her nose was running and a tear rolled down her face. Mom looked at her child and then she hugged her tightly. In that moment, a group of zombies stared at the mother and daughter before them. The woman, upon witnessing this, swiftly wrapped her daughter in her clothes and proceeded with caution. Just as she believed they were making progress toward the exit, a hairy monster suddenly appeared behind her. A chill ran down the woman's spine, and she broke out in a cold sweat. However, she had to stay composed for the sake of her daughter. They could remain still, ensuring that the creature remained unaware of their presence. Even if it tried to entangle her with its hair, she couldn't risk fighting back. She couldn't afford to be careless, as her daughter's safety was at stake. Unfortunately, the monster was unusually persistent. It repeatedly licked the woman's entire body with its tongue. Despite its mistreatment, the woman held on to her daughter without wavering. Just when it seemed she might surrender, the monster unexpectedly released its binding hair. Yet, in the next moment, it revealed its true form and chuckled, commenting on the woman's remarkable strength. "You've held on admirably, my dear." Hearing those words, the woman quickly turned around, only to find no long-haired monster behind her. It was just a group of ordinary zombies. She wondered, where did it vanish to so quickly? Suddenly, there was a violent shaking at the exit. A giant hand emerged from the ground, smashing down before she could react. Luckily, the woman was agile enough to escape the attack, witnessing the giant hand crush numerous monsters. She suspected that the person behind this was the owner of the dungeon village. Simultaneously, another massive hand was swiftly approaching. Unfortunately, the exit was blocked by a swarm of monsters. Realizing the dire situation, the mother pushed her daughter out of the danger. However, she and the monsters were trapped beneath the grasp of the giant hands. In the blink of an eye, they were caught. The girl was frozen, horrified as she saw her mother's face twisted in pain, and she started crying. The power of the giant hand was overwhelming, causing her mother to cry out in pain. Seeing this, the girl hurried to find help, tears running down her face. In that moment, the owner of the giant hand's eyes instantly lit up, and the grip of the hand was slowly becoming tighter, leaving the woman struggling for breath and gasping for air as she desperately tried to find a way to get out from there. With no other choice left, the woman focused all her strength in her hands. Feeling a sudden burst of power, she quickly raised her sharp right hand and grabbed fiercely at her opponent's finger. The monster, feeling the stinging pain, roared in agony, releasing its grip and letting go of some of the monsters it held. Landing on the ground again, the woman felt a sharp ache in her fingers. In order to find her daughter as soon as possible, she pushed ahead and ran as fast as she could. But the zombie leader was slowly stepping out from the shadows, revealing that she was a pretty woman with white hair and red clothes. She called out, "My little baby, where are you?" On the other side, the girl was crying and running fast because the group of monsters was chasing her. She was trying to run as fast as she could for her life, but she stumbled and fractured her right foot, falling heavily to the ground. The monster behind her lunged toward her, its bloody mouth wide open and ready to attack. Just as she thought her end had come, another, larger monster intervened, holding down the head of the monster behind her, and it stopped. A large amount of blood splattered over her as a result. She thought she would be eaten, but the bigger monster picked her up gently and placed her on the ground. Surrounded by monsters who were watching the whole scenario, the monster poked the girl. She couldn't help it and started crying, calling for her mom. She had wet herself from fear of being eaten. She really wanted her mom to come and save her. Just as the monster was getting closer to eating her alive, all of a sudden, a terrible smell started coming from a direction. This smell made all the surrounding monsters panic, and they all rushed towards the exit without thinking much. The girl was standing there with puzzled face, but then that terrible smell grew stronger and reached her nose. A tentacle came out of the dark and hit her back. She fell down hard, and her candies also fell away. From the corner, she heard footsteps coming closer. She saw a little zombie with red eyes and black clothes walking towards her. He held one candy and said, "Play with me." The story continues as the kid is looking at the candy. His eyes are wide. He sniffs it when he suddenly eats it whole, including the wrapper. Chuck Bok goes into a flashback as she remembers how she had to give these to her parents. Anger takes over her as she rushes toward the boy. She slaps the zombie boy's face, mushing it. She stretches the boy's face, tears streaming down her own. She screams at him, "Spit out the candy." The scene gets funnier as the boy mimics her, stretching her face just like she did to his. The monster boy keeps repeating, "Play with me," while Chuck Bok fights on and says, "Those candies are for my mom and dad." The scene continues as she takes charge again. She pushes the monster boy onto the ground. She starts beating him up as she yells, "Special Chuck Bok punches." His nose starts bleeding as he smacks her, yelling, "Play, play, play." She covers her head as she screams, "Wah, it hurts. Stop it." The scene continues as she takes charge again. She bites his head with a funny expression on her face. The monster boy starts crying. He runs away with tears streaming down his face, a nosebleed, and a bump on his head. Chuck Bok stands with a cute frown as she tells him, "Go away." The monster kid runs away as a smile pops up on Chuck Bok's face. She wipes her chin with her sleeve and speaks proudly, "You can never mess around with me. Hehe, these belong to my mom and dad." Now we see monsters run from something in fear. One of them sniffs something. He has fear all over his face as he looks down. It is Chuck Bok. She stands in front of the monsters as they look at her in fear. Suddenly she sneezes as they all run away. She is confused as she wipes her face and thinks to herself, "Bad smell. Is it because of his bad smell?" Suddenly, she recalls her fight with the monster boy as she realizes that she has caught the monster boy's smell. She says, "That's why," as she clenches her fists. She becomes confident as she says, "Then, I have nothing to be afraid of." She dashes forward as she thinks to herself, "Let's find mommy. Wait for me, mommy. Chuck Bok is coming." She is running. That's when she is grabbed from behind. A voice speaks from behind her, "I got it, Key-gun." Another voice replies, "Really?" As the first voice replies, "I can smell it." She is the master of the dungeon's child. Chuck Bok turns her head, her eyes wide. But that's when the monsters, Da-Yeon and Key-gun, become confused as Da-Yeon says, "Ha." Startled, Chuck Bok screams loudly, "Wow." Ki-gun says, but she's a human. Da-yeon replies with a smile, looks delicious. Da-yeon pokes Chuk-bok's face as she speaks, she probably had close contact with the kid. Look how soft her cheek is, so cute. Chuk-bok stands clenching her shirt as she thinks, what should I do? Ki-gun questions, how did this kid get here? As Da-yeon replies, I know, right. He then says, Da-yeon, we should take the kid as she exclaims, agree. I like her and now we have a snack. Shaking. Chuk-bok speaks up, excuse me, but I have to find my mom. Please let me go. Da-yeon responds with concern, oh my gosh, really? Alright, then I have no choice. She smiles as she says, I'll be your mommy, Chuk-bok. Chuk-bok abruptly replies, no thank you. As Da-yeon smiles and replies, come on, Chuk-bok, are you talking back to your mommy? Chuk-bok's face turns to a confused look. Ki-gun intervenes as he says, Da-yeon, we should give this kid to our father. As she replies, why? She's mine. He responds with a serious face, says, don't forget why we came here. He speaks as his eyes glow, we are here to help our father eat the master of the dungeon. We should give her to him as a snack. Da-yeon replies with a frown, give me a break. And the one who found her, let me eat at least one of her arms. Chuk-bok stands in fear as she thinks, an arm. He says, no. Annoyed, she says, why not? Something drips to the ground. It is Ki-gun's saliva which drips down his monstrous mouth. He says, however, we could ask father later. Chills run down Chuk-bok's spine as she thinks, my gosh, they are going to eat me. I'm so scared. I want to see mommy. She says, mommy, as she recalls an image of her mother telling her to run. She clenches her fists as she motivates herself. Okay, I should try my best. She turns her head as she exclaims, oh, mommy. Da-yeon and Ki-gun's head turn to the side as well. She immediately takes this moment and dashes away. Ki-gun speaks, she runs fast for her age. As Da-yeon smiles and says, it's so worthless that it looks even cuter. They dash towards her as she says with a smile, Chuk-bok, come over here. Chuk-bok runs as she pants. Ki-gun and Da-yeon follow her with bloodthirsty eyes. That's when Ki-gun's expressions tense up as he says, that kid is quite troublesome. Chuk-bok rushes into a herd of monsters who clear way for her due to the smell she caught from the monster kid. She looks back, out of breath. A blade forms on Ki-gun's arm while a scorpion-like tail forms from Da-yeon's hair. They begin slashing all the monsters away. Chuk-bok looks back as she runs and thinks to herself, I must find my mom quickly, or I will be in great danger. The monster get close, they having slashed almost everyone down. Chuk-bok runs along monsters as she exclaims, I need to get far away from them. That's when Da-yeon's scorpion tail slings forward as she says with a smile, no you can't. The scorpion tail is about to hit her as she completes her sentence, my dear Chuk-bok. The tail misses her as it hits another monster. Da-yeon's face turns to a frown as Chuk-bok escapes. She sits behind a pillar as she pants. Tears form around her eyes as she speaks, mommy, Gondal, Hira, I miss you all. That's when a voice is heard, don't worry. She looks up in fear. It is Ki-gun who stands beside the pillar. He speaks as his eyes glow, we will be your family. He reaches out towards her as he says, we are done playing hide and seek. Come over here. Tears stream down her face as she says, no, I want to go home. She repeats, no, no. That's when she slaps his hand away as she yells, go away. A cut forms in Ki-gun's hand as blood spews out of it. He looks at his hand as he speaks, I was cut by something. Something happens as he groans, what's happening? The pain in my hand is. Suddenly he grabs his hand as he yells with tears in his eyes, what the heck is this? My hand is burning. What have you done to me? Chuk-bok looks at her hand as a monstrous claw has formed at the tip of her finger. The story continues as Da-yeon is chomping on a leg that she has ripped off of a monster. She speaks as she chews, what should I do? I have no idea where I am right now. By the way, where's Ki-gun? She walks forward holding a monster in his hair claw when she becomes pissed. Is he having a bite of that kid without me? I should be the one to have the first bite. Suddenly, she recalls Chuk-bok as she speaks. Her skin was really soft. I never knew how soft a kid can be. Her mouth starts watering from the thought as she says, I wanna have a bite. I can still smell her skin. Saliva drips down her mouth as she continues, where is she? Chuk-bok. Suddenly she has grabbed her from behind. She turns around and it's Chuk-bok's mom. Da-yeon is confused as she speaks, who are you? Chuk-bok's mom's eyes glow in anger. The comic cuts to Ki-gun who groans in pain as the poison spread through his hand. You little thing. My hand. Chuk-bok shakes in fear, I didn't do it on purpose. He raises his blade as he screams in pain. It hurts. Chuk-bok closes her eyes in fear. That's when he chops his own hand off. His hand falls at his feet as he screams, damn it. It hurts. How dare you? My arms. She shakes as Ki-gun groans, I will eat you alive. If not, I will get an upset stomach. He screams in anger as his arm muscles crackle. I will chew your body up until no bones are left. She trembles as he raises his arm to attack. I will kill you. Her eyes are wide open as he slashes his blade at her, but that's when he is suddenly slammed into the wall. Chuk-bok is shocked. She turns her head as she whispers, Gondal. Daddy. Gomdal walks in, anger all over his face. How dare you touch my daughter? He drops to his knees as he hugs his daughter. Are you okay, Chukbok? I'm so sorry. You must be scared. What is this smell? Suddenly he becomes even more worried as he asks, and what happened to your finger? She sobs, Daddy, I was so scared. Mommy got caught by a giant. He hugs his daughter and says, it's okay. You don't have to say anything. Ki-gun stomps his feet as he gets up and yells, what just happened? Who do you think you are? Damn it. Do you think I'm an idiot? I will eat you all. They completely ignore him as Gomdal talks to his daughter while rummaging through his bag. Stand behind me, let's find mommy together. Chukbok replies, would she be okay? He answers, don't worry. Let's go home after we find her. I'll give you some cookies when we get home. She smiles at her father. Enraged at being ignored, Ki-gun yells, hey, are you listening to me? Damn it, you think I'm a fool, huh? He rushes towards them, but that when a brick crushes his skull. Gomdal stands strong, holding a brick in his hand. Stop swearing in front of my kid. It's not good for her education. Ki-gun is shocked, but he dashes towards them again screaming, I'm going to kill you, you son of a. That's when Gomdal hurls another brick at him, which is easily slashed by him as he says, is this a joke? But suddenly he becomes shocked as several bricks come hurling at him as they hit him all at once. He hurls several more bricks as he thinks to himself, I have to attack it with everything I've got. I should accurately hit the vital points. The bricks break as they hit Ki-gun. Gomdal speaks, faster and stronger, so I can smash that monster into crumbs for putting my dearest Chukbok in trouble. He beats him down. Suddenly, his face grows tense. He looks down and he is out of all bricks. Vine-like extensions from Ki-gun grab him by his arms and legs as Ki-gun says with a smile, no more stones, right? It didn't do you any good from the start because I can heal myself. Now finally it's my turn. I'll savor your body when I eat you. Gomdal responds with a tough expression, go ahead, then. Ki-gun smiles wide, sure, I will kill you. Suddenly he turns around. It's Hira who slashes his arm off with her axe. He is in complete shock as he says, what was that? She speaks with murderous intent, it means, you are screwed. Get ready. Now we get into a high-speed battle as she overwhelms him, slashing away at him. He tries to attack her but only to have his arm slashed again. Gomdal watches as he thinks, amazing. How can she corner that monster with just an axe? She walks through a pile of monsters as Gomdal continues to speak. She slaughtered numerous monsters on the way here. How can she still have enough strength to do that? Who is this woman? Hira breaks into Ki-gun's guard as she says, gotcha. The comic cuts to a flashback. A monster speaks, what do you think distinguishes monsters from humans? Ki-gun replies, difference in strength, followed by Da-yeon who says, and that the monsters are stupid. The monster walks in front of them as he continues, humans are cunning and quick to adapt to their surroundings, but they are too weak. Monsters on the other hand are strong but idiots who only act on instinct. In comparison, both have distinct strengths and weaknesses. But what about us? Human corpses and monsters lie are in the background as the monster continues, we are not weak like humans, and not stupid like monsters. The monster's silhouette is seen as he stands with his back towards Ki-gun and Da-yeon. He continues, we have the strengths of both humans and monsters, and even monsters don't mess with us, which means we are the ideal species for surviving in this world. The monster is finally seen. He has a freaky appearance with one eye in the center of his face and a mouth on his chest. He continues, we, cannibal tribe, are the chosen ones. Be always grateful for it. Ki-gun replies, yes father, revealing the identity of this monster. Father continues to speak, while I take down the dungeon monster, look for the child. It would be easy to catch the child if you used maternal instinct. His children reply, understood, okay. He then says, alright, you may go. The comic cuts back to the present as Gomdal yells, behind you. Chukbok yells, Hira. Ki-gun's blade retracts as it is about to hit her. Acting quick, she ducks as she goes forward and slashes him again. He groans, you, as she jumps back. Ki-gun laughs as he says, you can never defeat me. His scars heal as he speaks, I am the chosen one. You can't do anything. His muscles crack, you all die here. He jumps towards her as he yells, first, I will tear you body apart. He slashes at Hira. The comic cuts to Da-yeon and Chukbok's mom as she dodges Chukbok's mom attack. She groans, what is she? She has the same eyes as father. That's when a punch comes towards her. She's also a monster like us, but what is all this? The punch connects as she says, she's extremely strong. She grits her teeth as she dashes towards Chukbok's mom, alright, let's see what she is capable of. She flings her hair claws at her as she yells, stop these if you can. Chukbok's mom grits her teeth and pulls her claws out as she yells, tell me where Chukbok is. She slices Da-yeon's claw tail right in the middle as she groans, oh, come on. Both of them dash towards each other again as Da-yeon says, come on, no more dodging. Get stabbed and die. She attacks, but none of her attacks hit Chukbok's mom. She effortlessly dodges each attack and closes in on Da-yeon. She is about to hit Da-yeon in her face, but she manages to block her hair tentacle with her hand. Da-yeon speaks with fear in her eyes. Damn, it almost killed me. She pulls her hand away as she thinks to herself, what should I do? Nothing works on her. She looks down at her hand which bleeds from a gaping hole left by Chuk-bok's mom. She shakes as she speaks, it's not healing and I can't even feel it. Her attention goes to her split tail claw which is also still bleeding. She speaks with fear, I didn't realize at first but the injuries from this battle aren't healing. Is it poison? Chuk-bok's mom menacingly walks towards her. She shakes as she thinks to herself, I can't defeat her. What could I do when she's that powerful? She grits her teeth as she says, then, I can't help but use my last resort. Suddenly, she slashes her tail claw off with her other tail, and then rips her hand with her mouth which falls to the ground before lunging at Chuk-bok's mom as she yells, I'm gonna kill you. Chuk-bok's mom gets serious as she says, I have no time to do this. I must find Chuk-bok. That's when Da-yeon distracts her with her tail before getting into her range. Before she can do anything, Da-yeon splashes her blood into her eyes. She grabs her eyes giving Da-yeon time to immediately turn around and run. She runs as she speaks, it worked. I made it. I should find Ki-gun for help right away. I can never defeat that monster, never. Not without Ki-gun. The comic cuts to a bloody and cut Ki-gun. The story continues as Da-yeon dashes through the dungeon. She screams, Ki-gun, where are you? Chuk-bok's mom growls as she follows behind. She speaks in her head, where do you think you're going? She opens her jaw wide as she says, give my daughter back, you kidnapper. Back to Ki-gun who pants on the ground, bloodied and hurt. Sweat drips down his face as he thinks, just what is she? She is just a human. Blood drips down Hee-ra's axe. She stands over his head as he thinks, how could this happen to me? That's when she speaks up, you look confused. You're probably wondering how a human who is far weaker than a monster can be stronger than you. She raises her axe as she taunts him further. It's simply because you're weaker than me. She slashes her axe towards him when her eyes grow wide. Ki-gun pierces his own chest as he says, yes, this is much better than being killed you. This is a much more honorable death. He gets weaker as he continues, you will regret this. My father will never let you live. He dies as everyone is led to wonder who father is. Suddenly, a huffing sound attracts their attention. It is Da-yeon who stands seeing her brother dead as she says, Ki-gun. Anger takes over her as she screams, you bastards. What have you done? That's when she is slashed from behind. It's Chuk-bok's mom. Da-yeon falls to the ground as Chuk-bok's mom says, finally, I got you. Where is my daughter? Chuk-bok and Gum-dal spot her as they call her out but Hee-ra has other plans as she dashes towards her. Chuk-bok's mom looks ahead as she says, who is this woman? Is she with the monster? Hee-ra slashes her axe while Chuk-bok's mom sends one of her tentacles forward. That's when Gum-dal grabs Hee-ra from behind as he says, stop it. Don't even dream of touching my wife. For goodness sake, hear me out. Surprised at the situation, mom thinks, Gum-dal, how could you? Why did you come here? You know how dangerous this place is. She screams incoherently as she thinks there are countless of monsters. Gum-dal, surprisingly understanding her screams, says, when my family is in danger, I must come to save them. He drops his attention to Hee-ra who still squirms as he holds her. For crying out loud, stop it. She tells him, get off me, as he finally lets her go. Mom is still concerned as she thinks to herself, where is Chuk-bok? I should have protected her. What if something happens to her? What should I do now? She grabs her head as she worries when Chuk-bok calls her out, Mommy. Relief takes over her as Chuk-bok walks to her telling her, I did my best to run away from them. Tears begin rolling down her eyes as she asks her, Mom, you didn't get hurt, did you? Mom crouches down as she takes her daughter into a tight embrace. She speaks in her head, I am so sorry. I'm sorry I lost you, my baby girl. I will never lose you again. Well done, Chuk-bok. Chuk-bok looks up to Hee-ra as she speaks with tears in her eyes. Thank you for helping my family. Spotting her monster finger, Hee-ra grits her teeth as she says, this is ridiculous. You brought your kid to this dangerous place and instead of keeping your child safe from these things as her parents, you put her in danger. Look what happened as a result of your careless behavior and you didn't even notice a change in your daughter. What kind of mother are you? Looking down at Chuk-bok's monstrous finger, she gets even more pissed as she says, indeed, how would a monster know about such things? Upset by her words, Chuk-bok only says, Hee-ra. That's when Gum-dal speaks up. I appreciate your help but you are going way too far. This was all my fault from the beginning but why are you taking it out on my wife? Mom stops him from speaking further as he asks her, baby, why? She looks down at her daughter as she takes his hand and starts writing something on it. He speaks as she writes, thank you for saving my daughter's life. What happened to my daughter is all because of me and after we collect some supplies here, we will head to the Hope Village for her treatment. I don't have anything I can give you right now but I promise to repay this kindness in the future. Hee-ra stands with a pissed expression when Gum-dal continues, do you mind if I ask your name? She responds, Hee-ra Lee, Chuk-bok's friend. The story continues as Gum-dal and Mom look at Hee-ra with confused expressions as they think, Chuk-bok's friend. Gum-dal thinks to himself, isn't she a bit older to be Chuk-bok's friend? He looks down at his daughter who has scooted over to Hee-ra. He asks her, Chuck Bok, is that true? She replies with a smile, yes. He becomes angry as says, you little troublemaker. How could you keep it a secret from us? She speaks as she clings to Hee-ra, I'm sorry. Hee-ra told me not to. She told me not to tell mommy and daddy. But she's not a bad person, she's really nice to me. He becomes angry, how could you say such a thing? Isn't walking around alone enough already? Hee-ra cuts them off, stop it. It's my fault that I asked her to keep it a secret, but it doesn't really matter since nothing has so far, right? Suddenly growls are heard as she speaks. Anyway, there are fewer monsters here because it's a little farther from the center, but this is definitely not a suitable environment for a child. She turns around as she says, find some supplies if you have time to chit-chat. Chuck Bok follows behind her as she says, Hee-ra, wait for me. Mom looks down at Hee-ra's axe as she recalls a past fight, so it was her who helped me. Hee-ra walks away when Gumdoll speaks, then, could you answer me one question? She turns around as Mom writes on Gumdoll's hand, Hee-ra, who are you? She clamps her lips as she answers, I told you, I'm her friend. Come on now, show me the way. We're running out of time. He answers with a determined face, let's go for now. The comic cuts to later as a monster runs amok with a bottle as he screams, What now? Suddenly his face and arm are slashed. Mom and Hee-ra stand in the center of corpses as Hee-ra says, is this the place with supplies? Gumdoll sits crouched down with Chuck Bok as he says, oh my gosh. They sit in front of a carton filled with ramen and snacks of all kinds. He speaks, my mouth. Chuck Bok completes his sentence, is watering. He speaks as he fills his bag. Awesome, now we can pay for Chuck Bok's treatment. All we have to do is go to the village. She speaks excitedly, wow, there are so many chocolate bars. Can I eat them, Gumdoll? He answers, sure. Get as many as you want, sweetheart. She smiles wide as she says yay. A faint smile appears on Hee-ra's face as well. Mom watches her as she thinks, a friend of Chuck Bok. A frown appears on her face as she thinks, that can't be the only she's here. Considering how she handles monsters, she's definitely not an ordinary person. She watches Hee-ra who plays with Chuck Bok. She thinks, however, I'm sure of one thing, Chuck Bok is still alive because of her, but why? Mom looks at her intensely as she says, something makes me feel uneasy when I see her. She's suspicious. Monsters walk away as Mom peeks from behind the wall and says, good. They are all gone. She leads everyone as Gumdoll speaks to Chuck Bok who hides inside his jacket. Chuck Bok, you must be quiet. She whispers, okay, as they walk forward. That's when Mom stops suddenly. She thinks to herself, this sound. That's when a loud roar is heard as huge monstrous hands come towards them. She pushes her husband out of the way as he says, what the heck is that? They run as Gumdoll speaks, it's coming in real fast. Chuck Bok yells inside his jacket. Hee-ra runs forward as he tells her, wait, there are monsters this way. A whole bunch of monsters stand in their way, but suddenly they become scared and start running away as well, allowing them to run as well. That's when Hee-ra speaks, look over there. Gumdoll says, gosh, what now? She yells, there are two ways. He says, what? Where should we go? That's when the huge monster's arm swooshes beside him and crushes all the monsters. Gumdoll's mouth becomes wide open as he says, the right side is blocked. Hee-ra looks back as she thinks to herself, that monster blocked the way on purpose. Mom also looks worried as she thinks, the dungeon master is trying to fool us. We must get out of here at once. The dungeon master's eyes glow and squint into a grin. They run forward as Gumdoll speaks, please. I hope this is the way to the exit. That's when the dungeon master smashes his hand on the ground and a shockwave arises in the ground. They arrive at the end of the path, which is a dead end packed with monsters. Gumdoll yells in annoyance, it's a dead end. It's packed with monsters too. They run forward. That's when the dungeon master arrives squirming. She has the father's eye in her chest as she speaks with her head tilted. Let me see. She looks at Gumdoll as she says, not you, then looks at Hee-ra, not you. Then she finally looks at Mom as she says, yellow eyes. She smiles wide as drool drips down her mouth. Finally, I found you. Now we go into a flashback. Father's old body lies on the ground as he has taken over the dungeon master's body. He speaks from inside the dungeon master's body. This body feels a bit more comfortable now. The dungeon master's body groans as he thinks from inside, this is better than I thought. It's cozy and full of nutrients. I won't be needing a body for a while. Anyways, where are they? He walks in the dungeon when he comes across Da-yeon's tentacle. He speaks as he looks around. What were they trying to do? Hee-gun's dead body lies on the ground. Da-yeon crawls on the ground as she yells in anger, dang it, I'll kill them all. That filthy monster. Father arrives behind her as he speaks. Who could have done this? Not knowing that this is her father, she gets scared. The dungeon master. That's when her father grabs her by an arm that extends down from his new body. He speaks, I know you are surprised, but I don't care. Just answer me. Who did this to you? He lets go of her mouth as she speaks. It was a monster who had the same eyes as you, father. Back to the present as father speaks. Finally, I found you. A monster with yellow eyes. Mom looks at him with a stiff and cautious expression as Gumdoll says, "Hey, do you know that monster?" Mom responds with a loud no, as she keeps her eyes on the father and thinks to herself, "I don't know. It couldn't speak before." Her attention drops to the eye on the body's chest as she says, "The only thing that has changed about it is that lump. That's probably the reason for the changes, but somehow it's familiar. Maybe because we have the same eye color. Who could this be?" Suddenly large hands appear below the monster. A lump of a monstrous body form at the monster's feet as he speaks, "Do you know what I have been through to find you? But I never expected you to be this close." He smiles as he says, "It's about time you return the body you stole from me." Domdall looks at his, fear in his eyes as he speaks, "Hey, did you take something away from that monster?" Mom shakes her head as she thinks, "I don't know. I have no idea what that monster is talking about." Father smiles as he says, "Don't you recognize me? I see it must be difficult for you to recognize me looking like this." His eye squints as he continues, "Well, it doesn't matter if you remember me or not." He points at her as he speaks, "I'll kill you and take my body back." He raw grips her axe as she says, "Keep Chuck Box safe." Dumdoll speaks with concern, "Are you going to fight with that?" She responds, "Stop disturbing me and stand behind. I'll handle this no matter what." She walks forward when she is stopped by Mom. She asks her, "What are you doing?" Dumdoll also questions her, "What's up with that look?" Mom thinks to herself as she bares her fangs, "If I can't kill it, at least I have to stop it. In order to do that, this is the only way." She groans as she thinks to herself, "I'll in extreme pain while using it, but I have no choice." Her claws crack as they begin to glow a red color. She groans as her hair tentacles also begin to glow red. She says, "I must hold it in." Gumdoll looks worried as he says, "Are you going to use it while fighting?" Chuck Bok also peeks from his jacket. She yells, "Be careful." Chuck Bok's mom dashes forward, "I'll stop the monster." Gumdoll and the others look back as the other monsters surround them. He-Ra jumps into action as she pushes Gumdoll back and attacks the monsters. Meanwhile, Mom's tentacles crackle as Father speaks, "I knew you had it. Now I am going to get mine back." The monstrous arms extend towards her as she swiftly dodges and then hits it all over. Father groans in anger, "Do you know what I've gone through to get this body? And you dare to destroy my hands?" His hands throb as poison spreads through them. She dashes towards him as he groans. She attacks as she thinks, "I have to finish it quick." That's when her leg is grabbed by a weird flesh. She looks down in confusion. Gumdoll looks at her as he screams, "Is that a tongue?" She is suspended in air as a tongue from the monstrous figure beneath Father's feet holds her. He speaks, "How are my acting skills?" She looks tensed as Father speaks with a smile, "I'm so glad that you have come so close to greet me. How thoughtful." She attacks him with her tentacle when he yanks her to the ceiling. Gumdoll watches as worry takes over him. "Oh no." He yells, "Stop it," as Chuck Bok watches in fear. Chuck Bok's mom falls to the ground as her body cracks. What is this? The shock sends her into a flashback. She is running as human as she thinks to herself, "Am I running? Where am I going? Why?" Suddenly something cracks further as she thinks to herself, "Something has just." She stands as tentacles have pierced her head as she says, "What is this?" Now we see Chuck Bok's mom lies in a crater formed by her body being slammed into the floor. Blood spews out her mouth. That's when she is thrown into the air again as Chuck Bok yells, "Mommy." The monster taunts her as he says, "Is that all you got using my power? This is far more disappointing. Did you really think that a filthy little creature like you can fight against me?" She lies on the ground, her body bloodied. He speaks, "How foolish. Blame yourself for getting carried away with your power." Seeing everything, anger takes over Chuck Bok. She jumps out her father's jacket as she runs towards them while yelling, "Stop hurting mommy." Gumdoll runs behind her as He-Ra yells while fighting monsters, "What are you doing? Get her now." He rushes forward when a monster attacks him, hindering him to go forward. He yells, "Chuck Bok, wait." Chuck Bok. Chuck Bok extends her hand as she yells, "Mommy." The comic goes into a flashback of Chuck Bok's mom. Tentacles try to pierce through her skull as she thinks to herself, "It's dangerous. I can feel it in my bones." She pants as she continues, "I have to get rid of this." She grabs the tentacles as she tries to pull them out. She yells, "Come on, get off me." That's when she rips the tentacles out of her head as she speaks out of relief, "Great, I made it." She falls to her knees as blood trickles down her head. "I'm okay now." She looks back as she speaks, "I just need to." Suddenly her expressions change to fear as the tentacles form into a hand with claws. She watches it in fear when it suddenly jumps at her. She yells, "No, go away. Stop it." She covers her head and yells again, "Stop." Cracks spread over when suddenly Chuck Bok's voice breaks through the flashback as she screams, "Stop hurting my mommy." Chuck Bok's mom suddenly jolts awake as she thinks to herself, that was Chuck Bok's voice. She pushes herself up when she sees her daughter standing in front of her as she yells at the monster, "If you punch my mom again, I am going to beat you up." She points at the monster with her monster finger. Her mom tries to get up as she tries to tell her, "No, Chuck Bok, run." Gomdal yells, "Chuck Bok," as both him and Hee-ra are surrounded by monsters. Chuck Bok's mom pants as she thinks to herself, "I can't move because of the impact, but I must protect Chuck Bok." The monster stands in front of her as he speaks, "It seems your name is Chuck Bok. I have a question for you. What are you?" Chuck Bok cries as he looks at her and continues, "Are you a human?" He looks at her finger as he speaks, "Or a monster? Interesting. How did you get a part of my body?" She yells as she cries, "I don't know. Just don't hit my mom anymore, you idiot." Chuck Bok's mom gets up as she groans, "What are you thinking? Please, no." The monster's eyes glow as he speaks, "Is it because she's too young to have a proper conversation with me? Well, at least I found something useful here." Chuck Bok's mom groans as the monster raises its monstrous arm and speaks, "I'll learn more if I open those two up." Gomdal yells, "No," while Hee-ra rushes to their side as she yells, "Chuck Bok." Chuck Bok's mom tries to speak, "Run, Chuck Bok. It's too dangerous here." But the only thing she can say is, "Go, go." Chuck Bok pulls her mother. She gets mad as she tries to tell her, "Haven't you learned yet?" She yells, "Go, go." Chuck Bok cries as she pulls her mother and says, "No, I won't abandon you, mommy. I will protect my mom." Her mom's eyes grow wide as she thinks to herself, "How pathetic." Even Chuck OK is trying her best not to give up. She presses her fists on the ground as she continues, "She's stronger than me." Her mother, "Stand up." She growls as her tentacle begins to glow again. She pulls herself up as she hugs her daughter and tells herself, "I have to protect my family." Because, she pauses. That's when the monstrous hand comes from above to crush her, but she is determined as she completes her sentence, "I am her mother." The monstrous hand slams them. Hee-ra and Gomdal watch in shock. The monster smiles as he says, "Now that's what I call payback." "Alright, then." Suddenly he tenses as he looks at his hand and it has completely melted. He speaks, "My hand." That's when he is attacked from behind. Attacks begin to hit him from all sides. His body is broken down as he speaks, "What happened? It got faster. It can't be. Did she awaken herself in this situation?" Chuck Bok's mom slides back as the father's body sizzles and breaks down. Gomdal watches as he speaks, "Wow, its flesh is melting." His eyes grow wide as he speaks, "What on earth is happening right now?" Chuck Bok speaks to her mother, "Wow, mommy, a whip. You got one more whip." She stands menacingly as the monster says, "Interesting, now give it your best." Next we see monsters run away from something in fear. They yell and scream, "Get me out of here." That's when the dungeon master's kid comes out of the corner as he says, "Play with me. Play with me. Play with me, mommy." The comic cuts back to fight as father stands wounded. He speaks with anger, "You dare ruin my precious body. I underestimated you." Chuck Bok's mom stands at a distance as the father speaks, "I admit it." He raises his arm as blood spurts out of it. "I tried to be merciful, but you've crossed the line." The monster arms zoom forward as Gomdal warns everyone, "It's coming." But that's when the arms start picking up the dead monster corpses. Gomdal speaks in confusion, "Why is it taking the corpses?" That's when the blob of a monster puts the corpses into his mouth, eating everything. Gomdal watches with a confused face, "Wait, what is happening?" The blob forms into a huge monster. He stands up as the ground breaks beneath him. Everyone looks up at the monster as Chuck Bok speaks, "It's humongous." Gomdal drops his weapons as he thinks to himself, "We're doomed. How could we even fight against that? It's impossible to kill it. We can't even run away from it. What should we do?" That's when Mom pushes Chuck Bok towards him. He looks at his wife, who has a determined expression on her face. He looks at her as he speaks, "No, you are not fighting this. No way." He grabs her, "There must be a way that we can together." Feeling completely powerless, he speaks, "Please don't go. You might not make it out all." That's when she grabs his face as she shuts him up. She smiles wide and speaks, "Go do, trust me." She speaks with broken words, "Wait for me, I will be back soon." She holds her face tight as she tells him, "It's okay, don't worry." He clenches his fists as he speaks with regret, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being such a weak husband." He hugs Chuck Bok tightly as he says, "So don't worry about her. You are a great mom." He smiles at her, "Kick that monster's butt." Chuck Bok also cheers her, "Mommy, go and get it." Mom walks forward as the monster attacks. Everyone watches as the fist hits the ground, creating a shockwave. Chuck Bok yells, "Mommy." Father speaks as he pulls his fist up, "This doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you risking your life to protect your family?" He speaks proudly, "I also have a family, but the sacrifice you are making is quite odd. As a parent, I am the priority of my family and my children obey my orders." He recalls Ki-gun and Da-yeon as he continues, "To repay my kindness of raising them. This is what you call a real family." That's when Chuck Bok's mom appears from behind as she says, "That's not a family. You treated them like slaves for your own sake. You do not deserve to be called a parent." She screams as her tentacles glow and lunge forward. Father grits his teeth as he pulls up a lump from the monstrous body and protects himself from her attack. The lump melts as he speaks, "How annoying." He swings his arm at her as she blocks it and then digs her necrotic hand into the hand before zooming over his whole arm, slashing him all over. She yells, "Die." That's when lumps of meat grab her foot and father grabs her. He looks at her as he speaks with anger. You rat, you ruined my arm. He starts crushing her as he says, I'll squeeze your bones and organs. She groans as she thinks to herself, no, I am going to lose consciousness. Suddenly, father loses his balance. He falls down, losing his grip over Chuckbox Mom as well. He looks down and his leg has been cut. It was Hira who yells at Chuckbox Mom, wake up. She looks at Hira who speaks, I'll buy some time, so get rid of this monster. Move. She looks at Hira as she thinks to herself, I'm gonna do that without you nagging. She regains her balance as she joins Hira, and they both attack head-on. Gomdal watches from behind as he speaks in awe, wow, they are amazing fighters. Chuckbox speaks with confidence, Mom and Hira will win for sure. Gomdal answers, sure, I believe in them as well. Suddenly a voice is heard, play with me. They turn as it's the Dungeon Master's son. Chuckbox recognizes him as she yells, you. Now we see Chuckbox Mom fights and thinks to herself, I must protect her even if I have to risk my life. She slashes through the father's flesh as she speaks, I must get my family out of here. Hira fights the monster as she reaches her limits and thinks, should I take Chuckbox and get out of here? She slashes the monster's arm as she thinks, if I abandon those two, I could at least protect Chuckbox. A parallel between Chuckbox Mom and Hira occurs as they speak. Chuckbox Mom says, nevertheless as Hira continues, but surely. Mom and Hira roar, I'll kill that lump and get out of here together. The monster roars as he smashes his feet on the ground. He roars as father speaks from above, you meaningless creatures, you'll all die because of your worthless decision. The Dungeon Master's child stands confused as Gomdal speaks, it's a kid. And what is this smell? Chuckbox speaks, Gomdal, that is the monster who bothered me. He responds, what? She continues as she flares her arms wide. He can stretch out his arms. He hit me with them. He looks at the kid as he says, all right, leave it to me, but he becomes worried as he thinks to himself, but this little monster seems angry. The monster kid stands wide as he recalls his fight with Chuckbox. Chuckbox becomes annoyed as she sticks out her tongue mocking the kid who dashes towards them. Gomdal swings his leg towards him as he says, go. Go away, kid. The kid stops as Gomdal speaks, what the? He is way weaker than I thought. He thinks to himself as he recalls an old memory. How can a weak monster like that be here? Monsters usually run away when they sense danger. He looks at the kid as he thinks, but why did it come here? The kid looks at the father as he says, play with me. The kid becomes focused on the monster as he says, let's. No. Gomdal looks at the kid as he speaks with his eyes wide open. What did you say? The monster stands tall as blood is splattered on the ground. Hira is on the ground with her back against the wall. Chuckbox Mom pants as she is held by the monster in his hand. Father speaks as he stands proud, this is the reality. He looks at her as he speaks, no matter what you've given up for your family or how much new power you have hidden. None of it makes a difference. All you have left now is despair. Yet how can you be so stubborn? She growls as her eyes glow full of energy. Father looks at her as he speaks, your eyes tell me you haven't given up. He opens the monster's mouth as a tongue extends towards her. She growls as he says, now, be gone. Suddenly a voice echoes in the dungeon, hey you. Everyone's attention turns to the voice which continues, get your hands off my girl, right now. If not, your kid will be in danger. Gomdal holds the Dungeon Master's child who squirms in his arms. Chuckbox screams, let my mommy go, you big dummy. Father speaks with no care, that must be the Dungeon Master's kid. What are you going to do with it? Chuckbox Mom yells, stay there, go. But Gomdal stays persistent as he says, what am I going to do with this kid? This kid is a hostage. The kid wails as he speaks, let my wife go right now. Father looks down as he responds, are you trying to arouse my sympathy? What a pointless effort. Gomdal is quiet as father continues, you can't change anything if suddenly, his finger flickers. His eye grows wide as he thinks to himself, did my finger just? Gomdal continues, if you say so. You won't mind if I hurt him, right? The kid speaks, play with me, mommy, as Gomdal looks at father with sharpened eyes and speaks, for real. The kid keeps repeating, play with me, play with me, play with me. Father's body begins to tremble as he thinks to himself, I am losing control of this body. The kid cries as he speaks, mommy. Suddenly the Dungeon Master's memories start flowing into father's head. He recalls the Dungeon Master holding the kid's hand, feeding him and playing with his face. Tears begin flowing down Dungeon Master's face as she speaks, my baby. Father becomes worried as he thinks to himself, am I losing control because of this trivial emotion? This is impossible. He loses control of the body as he thinks, this body is indeed being agitated by that child. Is it because of its maternal instinct? So be it. Then I should take my body be. Father looks at his monster hand and Chuckbox Mom has vanished. He looks up as she is in the air. He yells, no, as he draws his claws forward, but that's when Hira throws her axe at his hand as it cuts it. She speaks from afar, don't you dare. Chuckbox Mom swings her arm as the only thing the father can say is, dang, before being slashed open by her. The dungeon master speaks, my baby. The story continues as father off of the dungeon master's body. Gumdoll speaks, she did it. As Chuckbok also cheers for her mother, you're the best mommy. Gumdoll says, she finally got that damn thing off. As father's eye falls, Chuckbok's mom looks at the lump of meat as she says, all I need to do now is kill that. She dives towards it, when the father stabs her in the palm of her hand. She groans as she thinks to herself, its tentacle went into my hand. Father's eye squints as she thinks, is it, smirking. Her claws glow as she attacks him when a projectile is about to hit her. She barely dodges as Da-yeon appears in front of her protecting her father. She holds her father as Chuckbok's mom speaks with a surprised expression. How can it still be alive? She groans in pain as she thinks to herself, excruciating pain is running through my tentacles. I have to fight. She starts falling to the ground as she thinks, why now of all times? Dang it. She groans in pain as Da-yeon escapes. That's when Gomdal yells, dodge baby. Confused, she turns her head to find the dungeon master's body about to fall over her. It crashes over her. He calls her in worry, my wife. Chuckbok also speaks in worry, mommy. He continues as he looks for her and Hee-Ra, baby. Hee-Ra, where are you Hee-Ra? The dust settles as they walk. That's when Chuckbok yells, Hee-Ra. Hee-Ra stands wounded and bleeding as she says, Chuckbok. She asks Chuckbok, are you okay? Who responds her as she hugs her leg, yeah. Gomdal speaks, well done, Hee-Ra, but where is CHK-Bok's mom? She turns her head to the side as she answers, right in front of us. He looks forward as he says, Dust whirls around Chuckbok's mom as she looks down. She stands by the dungeon master's body which is still alive. Her eyes glow as she looks down at her and thinks, I missed that lump, but the fight is finally over. The dungeon master coughs as blood spews out of her chest. Her claw begins glowing red. She thinks to herself, if I get rid of this dungeon master, it will be easier for us. This is a lifetime chance. She moves it forward as she says, I must kill it. That's when her hand is grabbed by the dungeon master's kid. He cries as he speaks, mommy, play. The dungeon master sees its child as she groans on the ground, my baby. Gumdal and Hee-Ra look away as the kid keeps saying, mommy. Mommy Chuckbok also watches, upset at the situation. The kid keeps crying as he pesters Chuckbok's mom. That's when she sighs as her tentacle whooshes from the side and stabs the monster. The monster groans as fluids are pumped into her. The kid yells, mommy, as he starts hitting her. Chuckbok turns to Gomdal as she speaks, dad. He smiles as he answers her, don't worry Chuckbok, mommy is trying to help. Chuckbok's mom pulls her tentacle out as the kid continues to cry and hit her. That's when she yells at him. Hey, she thinks to herself, stop punching me. It actually hurts. The kid sobs as he looks away. That's when his eyes grow wide as his mother has sat up as she calls him, my baby. Tears stream down his face as he rushes to his mother's side. They both hug as she holds her kid tightly. Chuckbok's mom looks at them as she thinks, they are just like us. She indeed is a terrifying monster, but she is also a mother who loves her child just like me. This is the right thing to do. It's all over. Chuckbok speaks, mom, as she comes rushing towards her mother and hugs her tightly. Her mom holds her. She thinks to herself, my gosh, you startled the crap out of me, Chuckbok. Chuckbok smiles wide as she tells her, let's go home, mommy. She speaks, okay, let's go home, baby girl. They walk out the dungeon as the dungeon master is left behind with her kid. Chuckbok waves at the monster kid who waves back. Scene shifts to Da-yeon and her father as she asks him, are you sure you will be okay, father? You didn't absorb the dungeon master. Father walks in front of her in his old body as he answers, I'm fine. I drained enough nutrients already from the others. She looks down as she asks, then what should we do? He speaks as he recalls his past fight with Chuckbok's mom. We are going to chase that monster and her daughter. She responds, but how? We don't even know where they are. You don't need to worry about that. I have a way to know where they are already. He recalls Chuckbok's mom's hand which he had pierced as he says, all I have to do is get my body back. His arm is missing as he continues, and I'll be complete as I no longer depend on absorbing powers from others. Tell all your siblings of the cannibal tribe. Da-yeon looks scared as her father looks at her and he completes his sentence, to bring me that mother and daughter. Now we see the night sky in the city. Monsters roam the streets as Chuckbok and the gang sneak around. Blood falls to the ground as the monsters' attention turns to them, but they are gone. Hee-Ra runs as she bleeds. They pant as they arrive home. Gomdal stands against the wall as he says, finally, we are home. Chuckbok's mom falls to the ground as well as Chuckbok asks them, mommy, daddy, are you okay? Gomdal speaks, no. Anyways, is everyone okay? Chuckbok raises her arms as she smiles wide and says, yeah. Chuckbok is totally fine. Her mom also says, me too. That's when Gomdal looks around as he says, hold on, where is Hee-Ra? She was right behind us. The comic cuts to Hee-Ra who lies face down in the corridor as blood has splattered around her face. Chuckbok speaks, pain, pain, go away. No pain is here. My hands are healing hands. Hee-Ra slowly opens her eyes as she sees Chuckbok. She calls her Hee-Ra. As Hee-Ra moans and responds, So-ah. Confused she says, who's So-ah? I am Chuckbok. Hee-Ra, you don't know who I am. She cries as she shakes Hee-ra, who groans. She speaks, "Hee-ra, don't forget me. Don't get hurt." Hee-ra responds, "Too late." As Chuk-bok continues, "I want you to get better." Hee-ra responds, "Then get off me," as she gets up and sees herself in a Hello Kitty tank top. She pushes Chuk-bok up as her snot is all over the sheets. She asks, "Where am I?" As Chuk-bok answers, "It's my home. My mom and dad helped you because you passed out." That's when her attention drawn up. It is Gomdal. He speaks, "Hee-ra, are you awake? Chuk-bok was extremely worried about you. I'm glad that you are awake." He stands at door in an apron alongside Chuk-bok's mom, who glares at her. He speaks, "Let's have some food if you don't mind. I cooked something delicious." Chuk-bok's stomach growls as she pulls her and says, "Come on, Hee-ra, let's eat together." She is silent. A hot pot of ramen boil in the center of the table. Gomdal slurps from his bowl. Tears stream down his face as he speaks, "Wow, so delicious." Chuk-bok enjoys as she speaks, "I love ramen. I've never eaten such a thing." Gomdal speaks, "Help yourself, sweetheart. This is something we can't have every day anymore." She replies, "I will." Meanwhile, Hee-ra looks at the clothes she is wearing. She speaks, "But what am I wearing? Where are my clothes?" Chuk-bok replies, "We washed your clothes. That's my mom's." That's when she responds, "It's childish," offending Chuk-bok's mom, while Chuk-bok smiles and says, "Yeah, it's childish." Gomdal stares at them as he thinks, "By the way, I didn't realize how muscular she was under her coat." He continues speaking as he looks at her, "She has so many injuries. She's not an ordinary person." He recalls her fighting as he thinks, of course, there was a reason why she was so strong. He gulps when Chuk-bok breaks his train of thought by yelling, "Thank you for the meal." He looks at her as he asks, "You're already full?" She responds as she smiles, "Yeah, I'm full." She grabs Hee-ra as she tells her, "Hee-ra, let's play after you finish." She continues with wide sparkling eyes, "We are going to play hide and seek, freeze tag." Hee-ra cuts her mid-sentence as she says, "We can't do all that." She looks down at her monster finger, which has regressed. Chuk-bok speaks, "Maybe we can play another." Gomdal speaks, "Chuk-bok, Dad and Hee-ra will play with you when we finish our meal." She says yay and joy as he continues, "So will you count to 100 in the room while you wait?" She excitedly answers, "Count to 100. Okay." She dashes out the dining room as he says, "Ready, go." She goes into the room as she begins counting. Hee-ra takes this time to speak up, "I noticed Chuk-bok's nail is shorter. Did you clip her nail?" He responds as he eats, "No, it was like that the next day. We will figure out what it is when we get to the village. However, the cannibal tribe might be after my wife and daughter on our way to the village." He speaks as he recalls the father, "Even if we get to the village, we can't guarantee our safety." He pours himself some noodles as he continues, "That's why I want to ask you a favor." He extends his bowl as he speaks, "I want you to come with us to the Hope Village." She slurps on the noodles as he continues, "Of course, we will compensate you the best we can. All I want is for you to keep me and Chuk-bok safe until we return from the village." He smiles as he offers his bowl to her and says, "What do you think?" She puts down her bowl as she says, "Do you want me to protect you instead of your wife?" She grabs his bowl and says, "All right, I will," before pausing for a moment and saying, "Was that the response you expected from me?" She smiles wide as she drains the noodles and soup into the pot. Gomdal and Chuk-bok's mom look at her as she continues, "You may think of me as a comrade because of what happened in the dungeon, but don't flatter yourself." She looks at them as she speaks, "I don't care if you get killed or not. Why would I help you?" She glares at them, "I will go with you, but I will only protect Chuk-bok as usual." Chuk-bok sits in her room as she has almost completed her counting. Hee-ra continues, "You handle the rest." Gomdal immediately agrees, "All right then. Do as you want. I'll take care of myself." This shocks Chuk-bok's mom as she looks at him as she thinks to herself, "What are you saying? You can't do it alone." Noticing her worried expression, he replies with a smile, "I have no problem taking care of myself. Don't worry." She looks at Hee-ra as she thinks, "You stubborn woman. Why is she so obsessed with my daughter as if she's her own?" She looks at her suspiciously. That's when Chuk-bok comes out of her room. She is annoyed as she speaks, "You're all mean. Why isn't anyone coming to find me?" Gomdal replies, "Oh dear, have you already counted to 100? She responds with a pout, "I finished it already. Lying is a bad thing." He replies, "I'm sorry, Chuk-bok. Forgive me, will you?" She pouts as she clings to Hee-ra, who smiles. She speaks, "Then I will play with Hee-ra only." Hee-ra pokes her chubby cheeks as she says, "Let's play." Chuk-bok replies, "Yeah." That's when she is pulled by her mom. She is confused, but that's when Hee-ra also grabs her and pulls her too. She speaks as she looks at her mom, "What's up with that?" Chuk-bok's mom replies, "My daughter." To which she says, "So what? What do you want?" Chuk-bok's mom is pissed as she thinks to herself, "If you want to be a mother, find someone else. She is my daughter. I surely don't like this woman." Both of them glare at each other as Gomdal slurps his noodles and thinks, "I feel much relieved that Hee-ra is coming with us. All we need is a vehicle to get there. Let's think after I finish eating." Meanwhile, we see three men who are chasing after a girl as they yell, "You bitch. Stop. I told you to stop. Do you want to get killed?" The girl has a crowbar and some papers in her hand. She runs into a room to evade them as one of the men laughs and says, "You fool." She arrives in a restroom with a small window as she says, "Did I just get into a restroom?" The boy arrives into the room as he calls her, "Hey." She is startled as she turns around. The boy continues, "Come over here if you don't want us to smash you head." She drops all her papers. Gomdal and Hee-ra rummage through cars as he says, "Nothing works." He gets out of the car as he peeks over to Hee-ra's and speaks, "This one too. How is it over there?" She responds, "Nope." He continues, "We've tried about 20 vehicles but none of them work." He scratches his head as he speaks, "We've already gone through every car in this area. What now? We might encounter survivors if we move further from here." Hee-ra turns around as she says, "Let's go." He is surprised as he speaks, "Really? It's dangerous and you are not fully healed yet." Not caring one bit, she answers, "So what? Are you planning to do nothing while Chuck Bok is sick?" He is silent for a second before he sighs and says, "I'll lead the way but you stay behind me since you're a patient, Hee-ra." She looks at him for a second before she walks up to him and hits him in the shin with her foot. He groans in pain. "What is up with you?" She responds, "Don't overrate yourself. You stay behind." He responds, "Just say it, not kick it." She kicks him on his shin again as he says, "Hold on. You just hit my bone." Gomdal limps around as he says, "Ouch, what did I do to you, huh?" Hee-ra walks ahead as she says, "Do you want me to cut off your leg?" He immediately responds, "No, I'm sorry." She walks in front of him as he thinks to himself, "I'm grateful for her help but she's too brutal. I might die before we could do something." He thinks of Chuck Bok who is playing with her mother. Gomdal sighs as he says, "Never mind. I should focus on getting a vehicle before her symptoms get worse." Suddenly a female voice fills the place as it says, "No." Gomdal and Hee-ra are startled as the voices continue, "Help me." A man's voice responds, "Shut up." Gomdal looks up in concern as he says, "Isn't this a woman screaming?" The woman's screaming continues, "Please someone help me." Hee-ra watches him when he suddenly moves. She grabs him by the collar as she speaks, "Dai, you forget why we are here. Why do you even consider helping other when you are too weak to even help yourself?" She looks at him with anger as she speaks, "Just focus on Chuck Bok or this is it for me." "Understood." He calmly speaks, "Hee-ra." She looks at him as he smiles and says, "I have a good idea. Please just hear me out." She looks extremely mad. The comic cuts to the young girl from earlier. She trembles as she is tied up. The men speak to each other. One of them asks, "Did you check the rope?" The other answers, "Are you blind? Look for yourself." The skinny guy crouches down close to the girl as he says, "What a bummer. Why not enjoy a little bit as a reward for our efforts to catch her?" The bald man immediately disagrees as he speaks, "No. She is a hostage we can exchange for food in Hope Village. All we need to do is kill the big guy who was with her and steal his car." The other person answers, "But what if the village doesn't want her?" The men smile like monsters as the bald man says, "Then we can just abandon her after having some fun." The skinny man drools as he grabs the girls and he speaks, "To be honest, I wish they refuse you. Then you are mine. We'll all be set when we get that car." Suddenly weapons fall behind the skinny guy. He turns around as Gomdal hold the bald and muscular man easily. He speaks as he looks down at the skinny man, "Clench your think or you'll never chew again." He kicks the man in the face, knocking his teeth out. Broken and hurt, they run out of the bathroom. The bald man yells, "Get out of my way." The muscular man also waddles as he says, "Who is this mountain?" Suddenly the bald man is punched in the face. The men watch as the skinny man says, "What now?" Hee-ra clenches her fist as she says, "Hand over everything you have." They attack her as they yell, "Is that a death wish? You hand over everything you have." Hee-ra punches them again as their faces are bashed in. The comic cuts to later. The little girl sobs as she says, "Thank you so much." Gomdal speaks, "I'm glad you are okay. What's your name?" She replies, "It's Young-hee." Gomdal responds, "I'm Woon Kim and she is Hee-ra Lee." She speaks up, "Thank you, Hee-ra." Wasting no time, Gomdal speaks, "By the way, Young-hee, I overheard the conversation. Are you from the Hope Village?" She responds as she holds her papers, "Yes, I am." He turns to Hee-ra as he smiles and says, "We made the right choice, didn't we?" Hee-ra is annoyed as he continues speaking. "We luckily saved one of the village people, so relax." Young-hee joins in as she asks, Are you looking for our village?" He replies, "Yeah, we have some business in the village." Her eyes sparkle as she says, "So you're coming to the Hope Village? Strong people like you guys are always welcome to Hope Village." They look at her as she continues speaking excitedly. "I came out for the first time to promote our village, but I never expected to meet such reliable people like you two. This is definitely destiny." She smiles wide as hands them a flyer and says, "I'm sure our principal and instructor will love to have you in our village. This is a flyer I made myself." He takes the flyer as he thinks to himself, a principal and instructor. Suddenly, his expressions turn grim as they are attacked by Tall Man. Hee-ra blocks his attack with her axe as the man speaks, are you with them as well? Gomdal protects Young-hee as the man says, she's family. Give her back at once. He swings his shovel-like weapon forward as he says, if not, I will chop your body into pieces. Give her back to me. Young-hee quickly intervenes as she speaks, instructor, wait. She walks up to him as she continues, they saved me. I'm so sorry. I should have followed you carefully. The instructor glares at her for a second before he smiles and says, it's okay. I'm glad you didn't get hurt. He smiles at Gomdal as he says, I'm sorry for what just happened. Gomdal replies, it's okay. But that's when his attention is drawn to something. The instructor speaks to Young-hee, who trembles. The instructor speaks, is everything okay, Young-hee? I told you to follow me carefully. She replies as she shakes, I am so sorry. It was my first time. This won't happen again. Suddenly she squeals in pain as the instructor squeezes her shoulder. He speaks with a weird smile on his face. Stay close to me next time, understand? You know I don't like saying the same thing twice. She speaks as he squeezes more tightly on her shoulder. Instructor. It hurts. Forgive me. Suddenly she relaxes. She looks up. The instructor looks straight as he talks. What are you doing? He pauses as he says, why did you grab my hand? Gomdal stands behind Young-hee as he holds the instructor's hand and grips it tight. The instructor says, I'm not interested in holding hands with men. He clenches his bat as Hee-ra also slides her axe from the side. Young-hee looks back at Gomdal as she says, Mister. The scene gets intense, but that's when he smiles wide. He begins shaking the instructor's hand as he pushes Young-hee out of the way. He speaks, my goodness, are you the instructor from the Hope Village? It's so nice to meet you. He continues, I've heard a lot about the village from Young-hee. She watches him speak with a confused expression as he continues, I was impressed by her speech. She did a fantastic job promoting the village and told us how great her instructor is non-stop. The instructor looks at her as he says, did she? She flinches but then musters up a little courage as she nods with sparkling eyes. He glares at her as he says, I see. That's when he laughs as he speaks, where are my manners? I am Soo Min-beek, an instructor at the Hope Village. Gomdal laughs as he responds, I'm Woon Kim. He then thinks to himself, it worked. Now I should ask. He speaks, Instructor Beek, would it be possible for my family to visit your village? The instructor responds with curiosity, your family. Are there others beside you? Gomdal points at Hee-ra, who is startled as he says, I have a wife who is right beside me, and a daughter. He continues to tell him, my daughter is sick. Do you think my daughter can get treatment in your village? Hee-ra glares at Gomdal, who sweats in fear. The instructor answers with a smile, we have a doctor in our village who can take a look at it, but the problem is, you have to pay an entrance fee. Gomdal smiles as he says, no worries. We have already prepared for it. The instructor replies, I'm glad to hear to that. He turns around as he says, I have to deliver this news to the village first. So, let's meet tomorrow in front of this building. Gomdal respond, alright, thank you as the instructor tells the girl, let's go as she rushes behind him. They are leaving when Young-hee stops for a moment. She turns to Gomdal as she bows in respect and gratitude. He waves back as a smile appears on his face and he thinks, good. What a lucky day. Now little Chuck Bok can get treatment. He turns around as he says, Hee-ra, we should go. That's when she comes and kicks him in the leg. He falls on the ground as he yells in pain, what is wrong with you? Hee-ra looks down at him as she says, your wife. Do you wish to die? Gomdal, still on the ground, continues to speak as he groans, think about it. That was the only way they could not suspect us. She throws him off as she speaks, frankly, you are not my type at all. He responds in disbelief, you gotta be kidding me. The instructor and Young-hee walk when a throbbing pain rises in his hand. He looks at his hand as he thinks, that guy has a strong grip. He recalls Gomdal holding his arm as he thinks to himself, I can say I'm the strongest people, but he was on another level. He recalls his fight with Hee-ra as he thinks, and his wife has good judgment. I can tell she's used to this kind of a fight like me. A smirk appears on his face as he thinks, both are talents that our village needs, and I must not lose them. The founder will be happy to hear about this. Young-hee follows behind as she thinks, I'll explain everything about our village when they come. I can't wait for tomorrow. It is the next day as Hee-ra yells at Gomdal, you lazy Gomdal. Haven't you finished yet? He looks at her as he packs his bag. Hold on. I'm almost done. I just need to pack some clothes for Chuck Bok. She looks at him as she responds, we need essential supplies, so don't leave anything behind. That's when he turns to Chuck Bok's mom as he says, hey, did you wrap her finger with the bandage? She sits with Chuck Bok whose finger is bandaged. Mom writes on her palm, have you packed everything you need? She replies, yeah, I did. Still worried she continues, is there anything else you need? To which Chuck Bok replies, I'm okay. Gomdal packed everything. Continuing to worry, she then asks her, what if there are many bad people? That's when Chuck Bok replies, nah, Hee-ra will beat them up so don't worry. She continues, wait, what about when you go to sleep? You need a lullaby before you go to bed. Little Chuck Bok responds, right, I can't sleep well at night. Her eyes glow with happiness as she says, that's right. You also think I should go with you, huh? Chuk-bok replies, yeah, you can come with us. That's when Gomdal speaks, what are you talking about? You know you can't go to the village. Mom becomes sad as she says, but Gomdal, realizing his wife's worry, tries to cheer her up. He says, don't worry, it's not like we are staying there forever. She looks up to him as he speaks, I understand why you feel anxious because we've never done this before, but we'll be back in no time. He grabs her face as he says, just wait for us here. That's when she slowly opens her mouth as she says, promise. Gomdal looks at her as she grabs his hand and continues, promise you will come back soon. He replies, I promise. The story continues. Mom's family has taken off for their journey as Mom stands completely undressed. She concentrates as she says, it's slight but I can feel it. Her fingers crack as she continues. I can feel the creature's tentacle in my body. Father's tentacle wiggles inside her flesh as the scene cuts to father whose eye glows. He mutters, found it. Be prepared, everyone. Dayon and his other children stand in front of him as she says, yes, father. Now we see the village. It has new buildings being constructed and power lines for electricity. A van comes into the village. The instructor sits at the driver's seat as he speaks. It looks like the villagers are here to greet us. When you get off, please leave your luggage in the car. You'll get it all back later. Gomdal nods as he sits with Hee-ra and Chuk-bok in the back of the van. He looks at Hee-ra as he speaks to her through his eyes. We've finally arrived in the village, but I can't let my guard down. We must get our act together, Hee-ra. Hee-ra looks back as she replies, we must. I think you mean your act. Chuk-bok sucks on her thumb as she says, delicious. Gomdal looks at Chuk-bok as he says, remember what I told you. She is confused as he says, you know that one. She is confused for a moment when she says, yeah. She suddenly turns to Hee-ra as she says, mommy, I'm scared. Gomdal says, that's my girl. Chuk-bok looks at her as she says, mommy once more, which makes Hee-ra blush. Gomdal whispers from behind, come on, Hee-ra, we practiced a minute ago. She blushes as she finally speaks, it's okay, sweetheart. Your mommy will protect you until the very end. Chuk-bok smiles wide as she says okay while Gomdal looks at her and thinks, but her acting is bad. How can this be so hard? That's when the van stops as the instructor speaks, alright, you may get off. Gomdal, Chuk-bok and Hee-ra look tensed. The back door of the van opens as they are welcomed by people. A random commotion starts as one person says, hello. Another says, he's huge. Another person also joins in, I wanna see as well. Gomdal turns to the instructor as he asks, what is all this? The instructor smiles as he answers, you must be surprised but don't take it too seriously. The people stand with wide smiles as he continues, they are gathered here because they are extremely curious, so think of it as a tradition in our village. Young He also stands in the crowd as she talks to her mom. He continues to speak, they are all nice people so there's no need to feel uncomfortable. Gomdal and Hee-ra sit with annoyed expression as he thinks, but it is uncomfortable. And Hee-ra also thinks to herself, it's annoying. That's when the principal speaks, I welcome your family. They all turn to the principal as he stands in the crowd. I'm the principal and the person in charge of this village, Hyung-jun Kim. Nice to meet you all. He smiles at them. The scene cuts to a woman struggling as she carries Gomdal's bag and speaks, why is it so heavy? A couple is also seen as they smile at each other. Gomdal walks behind the principal with his family as he speaks, this place has a homely atmosphere. And you have so many villagers. The principal laughs as he answers, this is quite ordinary in this village. Gomdal speaks with longing, I'm happy for them. It's been so long since I last felt this kind of atmosphere. The principal answers, is that so? He walks forward as he speaks proudly. It is a result of the earnest hopes of our people over the last 5 years since the village was established. At first, people couldn't smile like today. They would fight easily and cause problems. Hee-ra is silent as Gomdal replies with a smile, that must have been tough. You probably had a lot on your plate to lead them. The principal walks ahead as he says, I can't say it was easy but. He smiles as he looks back and speaks, they are now inseparable members of our family. Hee-ra looks at him with a suspicious look. She squeezes Chuk-bok's hand as the principal continues, gosh, I hope I didn't take much of your time. I hope your daughter gets well soon. Gomdal says, thank you. That's when the principal stops as he says, this is the place. Gomdal is shocked as they have arrived at a ragged place with a simple paper attached to the door that says hospital. The principal speaks, it looks a bit shabby but this is our Dr. O's room. Gomdal replies, I see. The principal turns around to leave as Gomdal smiles and speaks, thank you so much for your help. To which he replies, please go inside and meet him. Gomdal is smiling when his smile disappears. He thinks to himself, something's odd. What is this place? Hee-ra looks at him as she speaks, hey, Gomdal. You are feeling what I'm feeling, right? He replies, yeah. He recalls the entrance as he speaks. The entrance is unguarded and there are no lights to keep the monsters away. He then recalls the people, moreover nobody is armed. He speaks, this village doesn't have a proper security. He opens the door to the doctor's clinic as he speaks, for now, let's focus on the treatment. I don't care what kind of village this is as long as Chuk-bok can be cured. They look in front as everything is pitch dark. Gomdal walks ahead as he speaks, what the? Why is it so dark inside? They step slowly as he speaks, it's dark and where is the doctor? They arrive in the room. He tries to flick the lights on as he speaks, the light is not working. Why would they build it in the basement? Hee-ra walks forward as she says, is this the right place? Chuk-bok walks forward as well when she suddenly trips over something. She screams, ouch, as Gomdal asks, are you okay? She replies as she cries, I'm not okay. She looks in front. That's when red eyes stare at her as he says, who are you? Her eyes grow wide in fear as her finger begins to wriggle. She slowly says, go. Go. That's when her claw erupts as she points it at the man and yells, go away. She stabs the man with her claw as he groans in pain. The story continues as the instructor speaks with the principal, what do you think? He replies, well, I'm not sure yet. They look down as he continues, let's see how they do in the Foods Day event tonight. The instructor is surprised as he asks, are you going to test them just like the others? He replies, you know that is the perfect and only way to test people. The instructor speaks as he looks down at the people working. But what if they refuse even though they pass the test? The principal answers, do I even have to answer that question? Yang-hee waves at him as he waves back and continues, we can kill them and just take their skin. That would be enough. He stands proud as he continues, oh and be nice to the child who came with the couple because our founder is looking forward to seeing her. The instructor responds, got it. He then asks, you're not going to hit her like the other children, are you? As the instructor laughs, of course not. That's when a man screams, tell me. He holds another man who carries Gomdal's bag. The person replies calmly, calm down, man. You are making a scene right now. He squeezes his shirt as he says, am I? You all know what I am talking about. He pulls his knife out as he yells, tell me how I can avoid the monsters. The other person calmly replies, I told you. I don't know. The principal watches from above when his eyes grow intense, and he speaks, I see we have many foreigners who are new to our village. He pauses for a second as he says, I'm looking forward to tonight. Chuk-bok lunges her finger to strike the man under the bed as Gomdal and Hee-ra turn to her. That's when the man grabs her hand as he speaks with sharp eyes, what do you think you're doing? That's when he is pulled from behind. He looks up in shock as Hee-ra speaks with her axe in hand, who the hell are you? She pulls the blanket off of him as man with a plushie trembles as he speaks, I am a doctor. But why did you come here? All of Hee-ra looks at him with a pissed face. Gomdal, Hee-ra, and Chuk-bok sit on their knees as Gomdal speaks, we're so sorry for what happened. I never imagined someone would sleep in such a place. The doctor starts calmly as he says, what? So, you're saying? And then he becomes pissed as he continues, that it is not your fault since I was the one who decided to sleep in such a place. Gomdal responds, no, that's not what I meant. He continues, gosh, people now treat me like garbage ever since the world has gone crazy. He looks at his doll which has been punctured by Chuk-bok as he continues, and what are you going to do with my doll? Gomdal is confused when O speaks again, my pillow. Gomdal replies, I promise I will make up for it one day as he thinks to himself, he is somewhat different. That's when O continues, of course you must make up for my pillow but those two need to apologize to me immediately. Gomdal looks at Hee-ra and Chuk-bok. They sit with annoyed faces as he speaks, come on, you two, say sorry to him. Hee-ra and Chuk-bok turn to O who looks back at them, pissed. That's when Hee-ra and Chuk-bok speak with an angry face, I'm sorry. Getting even more angry, O yells, get out of here. There will be no treatment. The girls continue to glare at him as Gomdal says, doctor please. They are just bad at making an apology. O crosses his arms as he speaks, nonsense. Just get out of here at once. I'm going to sleep again. That's when Gomdal says, then look at this. Confused, he speaks calmly, I said get out. Do you guys take me as a joke? Suddenly, his eyes grow wide. Hee-ra has unwrapped Chuk-bok's monstrous finger. He inspects her finger as he touches it. Chuk-bok lies on the bed as he speaks, I must have lived too long to see such a thing. Gomdal speaks with concern, how is she? He replies, I know one thing for sure. A smile pops on his face and then disappears as he says, I have no clue. Hee-ra grabs his collar as he fidgets. Please relax, he continues. It's because her symptom is rare. People become infected after being bit or if a monster's blood gets on their wound. Chuk-bok's finger throbs as he continues, but she doesn't have any marks or scars on her body. I have never seen anything like this. He inspects her hand as he speaks. Fortunately, there's nothing wrong with her body right now, but I can't say if it will stay that way. Let's see how things go while you stay in the village. Gomdal is worried as he recalls Chuk-bok's mom breastfeeding Chuk-bok as a child. He then recalls her as she hugged him and as she hugged Chuk-bok. He finally speaks, Doctor, could you please keep my daughter's condition a secret from the others? O replies, that isn't allowed, but since I want to learn more about your daughter's condition, I will. Chuk-bok holds Gomdal's hand as she speaks, Daddy, is it because of me? Is the thing I have that bad? He grabs her hand immediately as he says, let's go outside. Gomdal and Hee-ra sit outside as Chuk-bok plays in the sand. Gomdal smiles at her as she continues to build a mountain. He speaks with a smile, I really thought we could find a way to cure her here. He scratches his head as he continues, we've been through a lot to get Chuck Bok here, so I can't deliver this news to my wifey. He recalls Chuck Bok from earlier as he speaks, when Chuck Bok saw me with worried eyes, I couldn't tell her she'd be fine. He grabs his head as he speaks, there is no other way and there is nothing I can do for her. What do I do? That's when Ra speaks, just stay with her. She stands up as she continues to speak, even if you are in the worst possible situation, and there is no way out, you must support your child so she does not fall. She walks to Chuck Bok as she supports her falling sand mountain and speaks, that's what parents must do for their child. Gamdal looks at her, completely speechless. That's when he slaps himself as he jumps up. Alright, let's move. She speaks, any ideas? As he replies, no, but we need to dig if we want to find something. Right. Let's move, Mommy Ra. She looks up at him as she speaks, that's way better. Chuck Bok has also made a weird looking mountain as she says, it looks great. Gamdal picks her up as he tells her, alright, let's go. Chuck Bok looks at him as she says, I'm hungry, to which he replies, then let's get food. But we need to find the cafeteria first. Young Hee is seen in the background as she watches them. Young Hee is watching them when she goes into a flashback. The principal stands in front of her as she asks him a favor. He replies, yes, it's pretty simple. Could you keep an eye on the family who arrived today? She responds, I can, but why? The instructor also stands behind him as he continues, I want to make sure they're not a threat to our village. They're visiting the doctor so you can find them there. She says, okay, as he pats her head and says, I'm counting on you. Feeling proud, she thinks to herself, the principal is showing trust in me. He looks at her as he smiles, if something occurs, you must tell me every detail. She answers, okay, consider it done. The scene cuts to Young Hee peeping on Chuck Bok from the window. She sees her finger. Cut to the present as she thinks to herself, it was a monster finger, not an injury. Did the principal expect this and send me here? Anyways, I should go tell him. That's when she's grabbed from behind. She jumps in shock as she looks back and it's her mom. She speaks with concern, you freaked me out. What were you doing here? Young Hee avoids her as she speaks, I was taking a walk. Why? Her mother looks at her and speaks angrily, stop lying. Why were you spying on that family? She still avoids her saying, what are you talking about? I wasn't spying on anyone. A frown appears on her mother's face as she speaks, did the principal ask you to do this? Young Hee's face pops as her mom becomes angrier, I told you not to listen to him. You made me worried by leaving the village too. Why do they keep asking you to do something? Young Hee cuts her off, stop it. She becomes angry as she speaks, it was all my decision including going outside our village to promote us. Stop blaming the principal. She clenches her fists as she speaks, I'm also one of the villagers. I'm going to be recognized as a necessary person. She looks straight at her as she speaks, and I will receive a miracle from the principal like you did. That's when her mother hits her in the head. She starts to hit her continuously as she says, how many times have I told you, that is not a miracle. Do you think I like doing it? Young Hee runs away as her mother yells, come back here. She looks back as she cries and says, all I want is to have a goal. So as my mother you should let me. Daddy would have been proud of me. Her mother becomes pissed as she picks up a rock and throws at Young Hee who runs away. She speaks from behind, I'm going to beat you so hard when I catch you. She looks at her daughter as she says, please listen to your mother. That's when a gust of wind blows revealing she has no arm. Gamdal sits with a tense face as he speaks, I never imagined tasting this again. A tray of food sits in front of him as he says, how wonderful is this sausage soup? He continues as he says, should we stay in this village forever? Chuck Bok sits in front of him as she replies, yeah, I'll bring my mom here and live together. Ra looks at him when he replies, it was a joke, I'll never do that. She responds, whether you like it or not, this place isn't suitable for Chuck Bok. She pats Chuck Bok's head as she thinks to herself, even the doctor has no idea about her symptom. She recalls Chuck Bok's mom as she says, if something happens to Chuck Bok then I will. She stops mid-sentence as she imagines killing her. That's when a person speaks, can I join you? They look up and it's the principal. He speaks, are you enjoying your meal? Gamdal replies, yeah, I love the food. The principal responds, it's only because we have ranches and farms. I'll show you around next time. Gamdal responds, that reminds me of how big the village is. By the way, do you have electricity here? It didn't work in the doctor's office. The principal replies as Ra listens keenly, it's quite dark, isn't it? We don't have enough generators so we only use it when it is absolutely necessary. He wipes his face as he speaks, anyways, how did the examination go in the doctor's office? Gamdal smiles, the doctor said that he needed more time. The principal looks at Chuck Bok and then her finger. He then speaks, then, how about we take a walk outside the village tonight? Gamdal is shocked, I'm sorry but at night. He replies, yes. He then looks at Gamdal and speaks, in fact, we go outside the village once a week to get some food. We need a large amount of food because there are so many villagers. Gomdal replies, I get that, but why at night in particular? At night, the monsters. That's when the principal speaks. That's the reason why we go out late at night. Gomdal and Hira look at him with confused faces as he continues. As you know, the monsters come outside and move at night. While they do that, we can go inside the buildings and take some food and supplies. It's quite simple. That's when Hira speaks, is it? You must think you're funny. How will you get through all those monsters outside without getting killed? She looks at him with a serious face and says, enough with the nonsense. Gomdal becomes worried as he turns to the principal. I am sorry. She's a bit sensitive because of. The principal responds, I understand, however this is not a joke. Hira is quiet as Gomdal thinks to himself, if it's not a joke then does he mean we can get through all those monsters unscathed? He smiles, you can see it yourself. Tonight, I'll show you the miracle of Food's Day. The story continues. Chuckbok stands with a stick in her hand as she says, it has been 20 years since we last met. She points it at the sand monster as she speaks, the enemy of Gomdal. She rushes towards it as she yells, this is for Gomdal. She smashes the sand monster. That's when the sand goes into her eyes as she cries, my eyes. How dare you? Hira sits with Gomdal as she speaks, are you buying what that crazy old man said? He answers, you don't have to be sarcastic. He continues, didn't you see that's why I'm trying to clutch at straws? He can be full of lies, but there's also a chance to find a lead to cure her. She is silent as he says, if what he said is true, it is worth checking. Chuckbok continues playing as Hira says, you are on your own. Disappointed, he replies, can't you at least wish me luck? I'm trying my best. He is upset as he speaks, I forgot. You probably have no idea how parents feel. He looks at her expecting a punch when Hira says, you're right. He is surprised as she continues, that's not something non-parents can say. She has a sad expression on her face as she says, go ahead, I'll wait for the good news. He turns away as he says, don't you worry, I'll do whatever it takes for Chuckbok. It is night, Gomdal thinks, me and my big mouth. The principal stands in a gown in front of him as he exhales and then speaks, look around you. Can you feel it? The fresh night air. He continues as the abandoned city is seen, the world under the moonlight, and the pleasant breeze. That's when a crowd of people is seen. They shake to the sounds of monsters as he says, how are you all feeling, everyone? Monsters circle around them as he continues, isn't it a nice day to take a walk at night? Gomdal walks as he thinks to himself, nonsense. He looks around as he speaks, the monsters are circling around people in red cloaks but they are not attacking. A person touches a monster as he ponders, is it because of their cloaks? They are even touching the monsters. That's when a kid's voice is heard. Gomdal turns around as a woman has brought her child as well. The kid is under the cloak of the woman. She speaks with a smile, yes, your mommy is here, darling. He is in complete shock as he thinks, is this really happening? How could they bring their baby out here? He walks as he continues to think, I can't believe these filthy monsters aren't attacking us, but there's one thing for sure. He looks at the principal and says, that principal knows something about the monsters. The scene cuts to later. Two people fight over a can of food as the younger man snatches it from the older man as he says, do you have any proof? Step back, you old bum. The old man becomes pissed as he says, say that again, you little. Another two people fight over a bottle when the principal says, everyone seems to be having a good time. The instructor speaks, sir, are you going to start it right away? He smiles as he replies, of course, this is the perfect moment. He raises his hand as he says with a smile, now, I will show you a miracle. He snaps his fingers as the monsters begin attacking everyone. Gomdal looks forward as monsters lunge at him. Monsters grab all the people as they begin their feast. The principal stands at a distance as he speaks, it's not my first time but I still love watching it. He continues as he watches the people scream in agony, look at them. Those pitiful and helpless creatures known as humans. A woman prays on her knees as he speaks, and those who beg for mercy in the face of fear. He smiles wide as he says, however, at the same time, those innocent behaviors are adorable. Young-hee's mother stands with him as well as she is silent. The principal speaks, but I can't find anything special about the guy you chose, instructor. Perhaps you're losing your touch. That's when the instructor speaks, sir. Watch the front closely. He looks forward when his eyes grow wide. One monster after the other is flung away with broken faces as Gomdal stands in the center of it all. He yells, go away, beasts, as he hits them with his back. He thinks to himself, what is going on? Why are they suddenly attacking us? He glances at the people in the red hood as he continues, and they're doing nothing but watching. Was this their plan the whole time? He flings several monsters away as he thinks, I knew it would be dangerous, but this is too much for me. There are too many monsters. Can I even make it out? That's when he looks at his arm as a monster bites on it. The story continues as Gomdal immediately smacks the monster away. He looks at his arm and his jacket is torn, revealing a bandage underneath. He sighs when a voice is heard. The monster wipes his face as he speaks, gosh, that hurt you stupid chunky. Gomdal is shocked as he says, were you just talking to me? That's when another swarm of monsters attack. He fights them as more and more come. The principal laughs as the instructor speaks, "What's wrong?" He replies as he controls his laughter, "It's nothing. It's just I haven't seen anyone that intriguing in a while." He smiles as drool drops from his face. "I can see why you like him now, instructor." He looks at Gomdal as he continues. He's pushing the monsters away with just his backpack. That was beyond my expectations. Interesting. But that's when he smiles as he says, however, a monster grabs Gomdal's bag and monsters surround him as the principal says, "Numbers do matter in every battle." Gomdal grits his teeth as the principal says, "I guess this is enough." He is about to stop the monsters when his eyes grow in shock. The monsters are cut one after the other. Gomdal holds a flashlight in one hand as he slashes all of them with Hira's axe. He thinks to himself, "I never knew this axe would come in so handy." He holds his flashlight up as he continues, "But this isn't enough to get me out of here." He is completely out of breath as he thinks to himself, "They are too many. They are healing because I couldn't hit their vital points." Monsters walk towards him as he grits his teeth and says, "There's no way I'm getting out of here if I can't stop them from healing." Focus Gomdal. He stands as more monsters surround him again and he is about to give up. He remembers his last conversation with Hira as he says, "I should have listened to her." In his final moments, he thinks of Chuckbok's mom as he says, "If I had her power, I could get out of this alive." He then thinks of Hira, or what if I were as powerful as Hira? He finally thinks of a smiling Chuckbok as he says, "Maybe then I could definitely protect Chuckbok." He stands in the center of the monsters as he says, "But that isn't happening." The monsters close up bit by bit. That's when he says no. The principal is looking ahead when one of the monsters starts running. Gomdal yells, "Nevertheless, it's too early to give up." The principal is impressed as Gomdal throws his jacket into the air. He fights them all as he says, "I will take them with me." The monsters grab him as he yells, "Get out of my way." But they are too many as they push him onto the ground. He lies on the ground as he remembers his promise to Chuckbok's mom. "No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you and your child. So will you let me be your husband?" She says, "Sure." Gomdal lies on the ground as he finally gives up. The monster reaches out to him when there's a clap. The people are shocked as the principal claps. "Okay, that's enough." The people look around as they speak. The monsters are retreating, but why? That's when the principal speaks. "This is the miracle that exists in our Hope Village. None of you are hurt because of this miracle." Two women sit as they look at themselves and say, "It's true. He's right, I didn't get bitten." He continues to speak, "Are you looking for a sheltered life, free from monsters? You can have a hopeful future instead of a fearful present." Tears stream down the woman's face as he says with a smile, "Everything you dreamed is possible in Hope Village. I will guarantee your future if you trust me." Tears stream down the people's faces as they join their hands and speak, "I believe you. I'll follow you to the end. I am sorry for doubting you. I'll give everything to the village." Gomdal sits on his knees as he pants. This was his plan the whole time. He looks at the principal and his companions as he says, he used fear to gain people's trust and he even controlled the monsters. He is panting as he thinks to himself, what on earth is happening in this village? His face stiffens as he continues, "I was wrong. These people are dangerous." Young Hee's mom looks at him as she thinks to herself, that bulk of a man can be useful. The story continues. It is the doctor's office. Chuckbok and Hee-Ra talk as she teaches Chuckbok how to make a scary face when O slides out from under the bed. He speaks with a pissed face. "Did you forget about your downstairs neighbor? Man, I can't sleep at all." Hee-Ra leans over Chuckbok as she says, "Then sleep somewhere else." Chuckbok agrees, "Yeah." That's when O becomes even more pissed as he yells, "Why should I leave my sleeping spot? Just keep it down so I can sleep." Still grumpy, he continues, "I let you sleep in my bed because I don't use it, but I am starting to regret letting you sleep here." He looks up when Hee-Ra peeks over at him with a menacing face. O immediately slides back inside as he says, "Anyways, sleep tight." Hee-Ra looks at Chuckbok as she says, "See, this is how you do it." Chuckbok replies, "Your scary face is incredible." She responds as she holds her, "You can do it too." Chuckbok speaks excitedly, "Really?" As Hee-Ra grabs her face and tells her, "Of course, you can do it because you're my daughter." A surprised look appears on her face as Hee-Ra asks, "What's wrong?" As she replies, "Nothing, I was just thinking about mommy. I wonder what she's doing right now." Chuckbok's mom is home. She checks the lock of the door as she speaks to herself, "All right, I am ready. The cannibal tribe will definitely come after me." She feels the father's tentacle inside her as she speaks. "It'll use the tentacle in my body to locate me." She recalls her fight with the father as he asked her to return his body. She speaks as she recalls her transformation into a monster, "My body and my past. Why did I forget about that?" She stands as she thinks to herself, "What I am now is probably the result of what happened that day. Come to think of it, I have no memory of when I was a human. Did I lose my memory when I transformed?" Feeling lost, she asks herself, "What am I?" That's when a monster slithers from beneath the door as her eyes grow wide. The monster attacks as she dodges. She looks at the monster and then jumps right at it. She slashes its throat as she looks back and thinks to herself, "Is that the hairy monster I saw at the dungeon?" She remembers it as she says, how did it know I was here? The monster bleeds as she thinks, I couldn't even detect its presence. That's when a voice speaks from behind her, interesting. She turns around as her eyes grow wide. The monster has revived. It smiles as it speaks, I knew where you were from the beginning, but I'm a little disappointed. Its head opens wide as it says, it's cruel to remember me as a hairy monster. It smiles as it speaks, I really wanted to talk to you. Suddenly it is cut mid-sentence as Chuck Bach's mom slashes her throat and yanks her to the ground. Blood splatters on the wall as she thinks, did you just read my mind? The monster replies, yeah. She screams in her head as she points her tentacles at the monster, shut your mouth. Are you from the cannibal tribe? The monster calmly lies on the ground as Chuck Bach's mom continues, did you bring the tentacle monster with you? She holds it down as she speaks, or did you bring others as well? Answer me. The monster speaks calmly, is that all you got for me? Suddenly, mom's eyes grow wide. She jumps off of the monster as she dodges her attack. She groans when the monster attacks again. She dodges as she jumps away. She launches her tentacles forward as they hit the monster as she says, got it. Now it can't move. That's when the monster speaks, do you really think it worked? She is shocked as the monster continues, you know nothing about me but I know a lot about you. I know you inside and out. It continues, I know you have a charming husband and a cute daughter. I also know that your family went to the village with the axe woman and, of course, that the cannibal tribe is after you. Mom looks at it as she says, what are you trying to pull here? If you're not from the cannibal tribe, who are you? The monster asks, me, as its body begins to transform. Suddenly it lunges at her as it says, I'll tell you who I am. It comes face to face with her as Chuck Bach's mom looks at her face and it's the same as hers. The story cuts to a flashback. Gomdal sits with her as she holds Chuck Bach as a baby. That's when she speaks, someone is watching me. I looked around to see if anyone was there but I found nothing. She walks with Gomdal as she thinks, I thought I was just agitated because I was tired but I was too naive. She speaks as she recalls different moments on that day and the other day. The scene cuts to the present. She thinks to herself, the icy cold stare I felt constantly as she attacks the monster. She slams it to the ground as the monster roars again. It rushes at her as she completes her sentence, was from this monster. The monster slams Chuck Bach's mom on the ground. She groans as it grabs her again. It slams her again but it looks ahead, its arm has been cut off. Chuck Bach's mom jumps over it as she kicks it into the ground as it falls below. She jumps back as she thinks to herself, since it fell from here, it probably died. That's when her face tenses as she realizes she spoke too fast. The monster is completely covered in a hairy exoskeleton. She looks at it as she thinks, what a pain in the neck. She slowly walks towards it as she thinks to herself, I tried paralyzing, poisoning, and even cutting off its arm but nothing works. What is it made of? She pants as she continues thinking, there must be a way. That's when the monster says, don't fool yourself. You already did everything you could, right? You have nothing left. Didn't I tell you? I know everything about you. Chuck Bach's mom stops in place as the monster steps forward and speaks, I can even feel your emotions right now. Do you want me to say it for you? It looks down at her as it says, are you afraid of me? She takes a step back when she immediately starts running. She runs as she thinks, I can feel it in my bones. That monster is dangerous for now. Suddenly, the monster's hair pierces through her. She looks back as the monster says, where are you going? Take a look at me, coward. It lunges at her as it yells, you can no longer deny my existence. It pulls her to it as it yells, face the truth, I am you. It speaks with anger, you disgust me as it tears her open. Chuck Bach's mom groans as she thinks to herself, no way, I can't be killed by something I don't even know. It tears her flesh off as she thinks, my family is waiting for me. I must protect Gomdal, Chuck Bach. She lies on the ground as her body parts are scattered. She coughs and pants as the monster speaks, why are you pouring your heart out for those fakes? Look at me, just look at me. The hairs flow around her as she says, stop denying what I am anymore. It reaches out to her as she thinks to herself, so this is how my life ends. She remembers her family as she says, but I made a promise to them. She remembers Gomdal's kiss on her forehead as she says, I'm sorry, Gomdal. She remembers a smiling Chuck Bach as she says, I'm sorry, Chuck Bach. She says I'm sorry once more as she slowly fades away. That's when she has a memory in which she holds something in her hand as she screams. It's a hairy mess. She holds it in her hands as she screams. Suddenly her eyes open. She is lying on the floor covered in sweat. She thinks to herself, was that a dream? It was a terrible nightmare. Gosh, what is this headache? She gets up as she continues to think, how can I not remember that? That's when a voice speaks from behind her, are you okay? She turns around as Da-yeon stands with her siblings as she speaks, you look exhausted. Sis, do you need help? A huge monster enters from the door as he says, it's too small. The story continues as Da-yeon punches Chuck Bach's mom in the face. Da-yeon looks at her hand and it has been cut. Rage takes over her as her sibling holds Chuck Bach's mom as she begins kicking her, yelling, ouch, I cut my hand on those stupid teeth of yours. One of her siblings, Yi-rin, speaks, that's enough, Da-yeon, let's get going. She responds, "Give me a moment, Yi-rin." The large monster looks at Da-yeon torturing Chuckbox mom as she says, "That's gotta hurt." The monster next to her replies, "Donggu, you're gonna see this a lot. When will you get used to this?" Gi-chul, the monster that holds Chuckbox mom, speaks as he holds his chin in thought. "What a shame. She perfectly fits my type." That's when Da-yeon speaks with an annoyed face. "Huh, is ugly your type? She's ugly and even has a kid." Gi-chul, still thinking, makes her speak again. "Is she really your type, Gi-chul?" He puts up a thumb as he says, "Even better." She just responds, "You're crazy." Taking advantage of the distraction, Chuckbox mom moves as she kicks Gi-chul between his legs. He groans in pain as Da-yeon attacks her, yelling, "How dare you." She kicks Da-yeon, slamming her into the wall. Both Gi-chul and Da-yeon fall to the ground as Chuckbox mom dashes away. Yi-rin stands there, saying, "Wow, look how fast she is." Da-yeon gets up and yells at her, "What are you waiting for, Yi-rin? Why did you let her go?" She calmly replies, "It's okay, there's no need to rush." She licks her lips as she continues, "No matter where she goes, she can never escape from us." The tentacle moves inside Chuckbox mom's chest as she runs away. The scene moves to the streets of the city. Da-yeon laughs, "Is this the best you can do?" As she roams between monsters. She continues as she smiles, "Go ahead, run away some more. We will find you anyway." Chuckbox mom watches her back as Da-yeon continues to speak, "You can never get away from us with that tentacle in your body." The tentacle moves inside her as Da-yeon continues speaking. "Don't try to get rid of it. It's impossible to get rid of since it's so fast and small." Chuckbox mom is surrounded by monsters. That's when Da-yeon attacks her from behind, yelling, "Stop wasting our time and come with us." She pierces her with her claws through her. Blood splatters everywhere as she says, "Hide and seek is over. Let's go." That's when the monster turns and it's not Chuckbox mom. The monster has the father's tentacle in her cheek. Da-yeon is shocked as she says, "What? Who are you?" That's when Chuckbox mom comes from behind and slashes Da-yeon. Her eyes then dart to the side. She immediately ducks as Gi-chul attacks her. She slashes his chest as he wraps his arm around her. That's when she looks to the side as Donggu punches her several meters away. She gets back up and thinks, "Good, 2 down, 1 more to go." That's when Yi-rin speaks, "It's me and you, freak." She looks forward in shock. Da-yeon and Gi-chul are supported by Yi-rin. Da-yeon speaks, "Did you just trick me with a decoy? And where did you get new clothes?" Yi-rin speaks, "Relax. Your wounds need to be healed." Chuckbox mom is shocked as she watches them being healed. "The wounds I made are healing quickly." She watches them as Da-yeon speaks, "Hey, where is your family?" She continues, "I tried really hard to find them, but they were nowhere around. Where did they go without you?" Mom is quiet when Da-yeon smiles wide and says, "Oh right. They are in Hope Village." A sudden rage takes over Chuckbox mom as she jumps right at her, and that's when Gi-chul punches her with his spike hand, saying, "Not a chance." She coughs up blood as she is thrown meters away. She balances herself as she charges her tentacles at them, yelling, "Do not mess with my family." Gi-chul extends his arms forward, saying, "Okay, that's enough." They wrap around her tentacles until she is tied up as a whole. Da-yeon smiles wide, saying, "I told you, you can never escape from us." Brain-dead monsters circle around Chuckbox mom as Da-yeon continues to speak, "You never saw this coming, did you? Be grateful this special event was planned just for you." More and more monsters come to surround her as she says, "We were all waiting out here for you to come." Chuckbox mom is completely trapped as Da-yeon speaks, "Mark my word. There's no way you can get away from us." She stands with a smile as she says, "I wanted to take the high road, but I guess it's too late now. I'll tear you into pieces before we go." The monsters bite into her flesh. Da-yeon laughs as she poses for a camera shot, enjoying her misery as she says, "I love your face. Finally, I got a wonderful picture. Now we are finally even." Someone walks to them as Da-yeon continues, "I can save your life after my father is done with you. As a special treat, I will keep you as my pet." Gi-chul's attention turns to his right. Fear takes over him as Da-yeon also turns to her right when something large throws her several meters away. Everyone looks up in shock as the brain-dead monsters run away as well. White hair flutters in the wind as Chuckbox mom gulps. It is the dungeon master as she stands with her child. Yi-rin speaks as she steps back in fear. "I don't get it. We checked every possible danger around here." She is scared as she says, "It can't be a coincidence." The dungeon master reaches out to her as she says, "Why is the dungeon master here?" Chuckbox mom looks forward as she thinks, "Why is it out of the dungeon all of a sudden?" She holds her bleeding arm as she says, "This is not good. My plate is already full." She stares at the dungeon master, who stares back. Gi-chul sweats in fear as he looks back at Yi-rin and asks, "How should we proceed? That thing is blocking us." All the monsters shake at her side as he speaks, "Tell us what to do." Yi-rin is also scared, but then she finally speaks, "Don't panic. We're not here to fight the dungeon master." The little monsters look at her as she continues, "Our target is that thing that has our father's body in it. Everyone looks at Chuckbox Mom as Rin says, all we need to do is capture it and get out of here. She points at Chuckbox Mom as she yells, this is something we need to do as a family. Capture her right now. The monsters rush towards her as they yell, she's right. It's all for our father. I want to be recognized by father. Move away, I'll get her first. Chuckbox Mom looks back as she says, crap. That's when the Dungeon Master's kid looks at her mother and says, Mom, let's play. She understands what he meant to say as she looks forward. She licks her tongue when large arms arise from her body. They rush towards Chuckbox Mom. She remembers her family as she thinks to herself, I can never let them catch me here. She clenches her teeth as she attacks the monsters. That's when the Dungeon Master's arm overtakes her and kills all the monsters. The monsters cower away in fear as they say, there's no way we can defeat that. This is too much. Rin points forward as she speaks, did you see that? Gichul responds, is it a coincidence that it only hit our family and not that thing? That's when she responds with a scared face, it's not a frickin' coincidence. Chuckbox Mom looks back as the Dungeon Master smiles at her. Claws pop out of Gichul and Donggu's body as they get ready to attack. Donggu stomps his foot on the ground, saying, let's go get her. They dash forward as Rin yells, go get her right now. The monsters run away from the Dungeon Master as Donggu says, I can't get a good look. Gichul runs in front as he yells, what a mess. Where is she? Gichul is looking around as he says, I'm sure she's right over. That's when his head is chopped off by Chuckbox Mom. She stands in front of him as his body falls. Donggu watches as rage takes over him. He attacks her with full power as she jumps out of the way only for him to crush the ground. She is gone as he looks around and yells, show yourself. The Dungeon Master's hands hover over the herd of monsters as Donggu thinks to himself, I can't see anything because of our family. I might harm them if I attack randomly. The Dungeon Master continues to crush the monsters in her hands. Donggu looks around, where the hell is she? As Chuckbox Mom stands behind him. Rin yells, Donggu, behind you. But it's too late as Chuckbox Mom slashes his back. He groans in pain, my back, it hurts. It feels like I'm melting but. He suddenly turns around to attack her. He yells, got you little brat. But he is too slow as she stabs him with her necrotic tentacle. Later, Da-Yeon wakes up as she groans, I feel faint. What happened? She looks up as she is surrounded by Chuckbox Mom, the Dungeon Master, and her child. Fear sinks into her as she looks around and exclaims, what on earth? Where is my family? She looks around at the piles of bodies lying around her. Everyone is dead as she says, no way. Chuckbox Mom grabs her head as she points her claws at Da-Yeon and says, tell me everything you know. Da-Yeon responds, you will get nothing out of me. Still angry, she says, would you rather die? Desperate, Da-Yeon says, wait, let's make a deal. But Chuckbox Mom isn't interested in making deals as she says, then it will sting a little. That's when Da-Yeon finally gives in. She shakes as she speaks, Hope Village is our second hideout. We saw your family there. Chuckbox Mom looks at her in shock. The story continues as it cuts to Hope Village. Gomdal enters the village with the rest of the villagers. The villagers speak with each other as they relax. Gomdal thinks to himself, this is so confusing. He recalls his experience as he remembers the principal controlling the monsters. He thinks to himself, the monsters controlled by the principal. He then recalls the monster that could talk as he continues, they also have the ability to talk. He grabs his head as he thinks, even if I tell all this to Hee-Ra, what can we do next? We don't even know Chuckbox disease yet. That's when Young-Hee's mother passes by him as she speaks, hey, I'll see you at the hospital. He looks at her as she smiles. The doctor's office opens as Young-Hee's mother enters the room. Gomdal and Hee-Ra sit at their place. Hee-Ra speaks as she looks at her, come and sit. She introduces herself, I'm Young Julie, the mother of Young-Hee. I heard a lot about you from her. Gomdal replies, I see, as he shakes her hand. She reaches out to shake Hee-Ra's hand, but she just looks at her with a pissed expression. Young-Ju says with a smile, how welcoming you are. She then turns to Gomdal as she speaks, today, you witnessed the miracle of Foods Day. What do you think? Gomdal is confused as he says, today's miracle was. She then continues, yeah, you can't come across something like that every day, right? That's when she gets quiet and then speaks, do you believe the miracle? Gomdal recalls his fight with the monsters as he speaks, I have no idea why you are asking me that question. He then looks at her as he says, but I don't want to believe in a miracle that might put my life in danger one day. Young-Ju grows quieter and then says, oh. That's when she laughs as Gomdal looks pissed. Young-Ju continues as a smile appears on her face. I'm so glad to hear that you don't believe in that crappy miracle. I really do have a keen sense of understanding people. He is confused as she speaks. I was worried you might be amazed by that old fossil. He replies, ah, right. She continues loudly with a smile. You don't know how happy I am to finally meet people who understand. That's when Hee-Ra cuts her off as she says, shut your mouth. You're gonna wake her up. Gomdal looks at Young-Ju as he speaks, tell us everything you know. What is the principal actually doing? Young-Ju grabs her head as she sighs, isn't it obvious? She continues as she recalls the principal's antics. With a smile on his face, He gathers up people either to feed them to monsters or to transform them into monsters. She looks at him with sharp eyes as she speaks. He is a bloody old man who created the cannibal tribe. Gamdal is in complete shock as he says, "What?" Hee-ra is also shocked. Gamdal turns completely towards Young-ju as he speaks. "Hold on. So, are you telling me that the cannibal tribe runs this place?" She responds calmly, "Yeah, it seemed like an ordinary village. But this place is more like a monster factory." Suddenly Hee-ra speaks, "It definitely smells fishy." She glares at Young-ju as she speaks, "How can you share that kind of secret with the people you met today? Is it all true?" Young-ju looks straight at her as she says, "I'll tell you everything I know if you want." Hee-ra replies, "No, that's enough, we are leaving tomorrow." Young-ju asks with a concerned face, "Tomorrow?" Gamdal speaks with concern, "Hold on, what about Chuck-box treatment?" She replies, "How can we stay here? We are already in trouble even before getting started with the treatment." He tries to reason, but that's when Hee-ra says, "Don't worry, when we leave, we can take the doctor with us. He will be a valuable hostage. We can also take some supplies for the treatment." Hee-ra then turns to Young-ju as she looks at her with bloodthirsty eyes and says, "And we should kill this woman." Young-ju gulps in fear when Gamdal speaks, "Come to your senses, Hee-ra. How can you say that as a mother?" That's when Dr. O peeks from under the bed as he says, "You should watch your language even when she's sleeping." Gamdal is startled as he says, "My goodness." O speaks as Chuck-box sleeps, "I prefer this place with electric generators and medical equipment. Do you really think it can be treated at home? Even a doctor would find it difficult." Young-ju also joins in as she speaks, "Did you hear that? Don't take drastic actions. If anything, it will put your daughter in greater danger." She then looks at Hee-ra as she continues, "At this rate, she will not be able to receive proper treatment on time and her condition will worsen. In the end, she will turn into a lovely monster." Anger takes over Hee-ra as she grabs Young-ju by her throat. Oh yells at her, "Take your hand off her. How could you do that to Young-ju?" Gamdal also yells, "Stop it, Hee-ra." She looks angry as she speaks, "How did you find out?" "Only the doctor knew about that." She turns to O as she asks him, "Did you tell her our secret behind our backs?" O yells at her, "Hee-ra, don't worry, we can trust Young-ju." To which she responds, "Shut up. She'll cause trouble one day. We should kill her now." She starts choking Young-ju. That's when she speaks, "Do you know that the principal already knows?" Hee-ra is confused as she says, "What?" Young-ju continues, "The principal is a dangerous man and he is after your daughter. Even if you manage to escape, the monsters will never let you go." Young-ju uses her full strength as she yells, "We'll give you treatment, food, whatever you want. Just help us kill that old man." She recalls her daughter as she says, "Please help me save my daughter." O and Gamdal are speechless. Hee-ra looks at Young-ju as she looks back at her. She finally sighs as she lets her go and she falls to her knees. Hee-ra speaks, "All right, the negotiation is over, but you must keep your word." She coughs as she answers, "Don't worry, I will." Hee-ra reaches out to Young-ju as she looks at it for a second before a smile appears on her face and she reaches out as well. Chuck-bok lies on his bed, having listened to everything. The scene cuts to later. Young-ju is smoking when she suddenly coughs. She stands with O as she says, "Gosh, my neck still hurts." O responds, holding a lollipop, "That was harsh, but you got lucky. You could have been in bigger trouble." They both stand under the night sky as she speaks, "We got the deal. So, I can make peace with that." To which O responds, "Please make the deal right if you want to keep the one arm you have left." She becomes pissed as she replies, "Watch your mouth, Jingu." He continues, "You know I'm saying this because I'm worried." She laughs as she says, "Is that so?" He looks down as he asks her, "But do you really have no regrets?" He continues, "We're ready, but we're up against the cannibal tribe. We're taking a huge risk here. Are you sure you wouldn't regret it if it fails?" She calmly smokes her cigarette as he speaks, "And how can I cure her when I have no idea what is causing her symptoms?" He takes a brief pause before he says, "But thanks to you, I will have to work hard." That's when she laughs as she slaps him in the gut, making him spit his lollipop out. She speaks, "Why would you say something like that? I know all of your secrets. That's your specialty. I know you can do it." He crouches down as he looks at her and speaks, "For goodness sake." She continues to speak, "You asked if I regretted it, didn't you?" He looks at her as she speaks, "I have no regrets because I must do this for my daughter's future." She has a smile on her face as she says, "I'm sure her father would do the same. This is the only way I can be forgiven." The scene cuts back 3 years ago. Young-ju narrates, "My family and I risked our lives to collect food and avoid monsters on our way to the village my husband mentioned, called Hope Village." A young Young-hee sits on her father's back as she says, "Daddy, I'm thirsty and hungry." Her father responds, "Hang in there, sweetie. We'll be there soon. Look, mommy is doing her best too." Young-ju walks in front with a bag on her back as she mumbles to herself. Her husband calls her as he speaks, "Honey, I couldn't hear what you said." She mumbles, "No more," as her mouth is dry and her face steaming with sweat. She mumbles, "I don't want to do this anymore." Young-ju narrates, "Shamefully, I wanted to end my life and even my daughter was suffering to survive. But even in that situation, the only thing that could help me gather myself up was my husband, Min-soo. Min-soo smiles wide as he says, "We finally made it." They stand at the gate of Hope Village. He speaks as he pants, "We might surprise everyone." Young-ju thinks to herself, "I followed my husband here, but I don't know if Hope Village is a good place to live, but I am too exhausted to think." She falls to the ground. That's when the principal is heard speaking. "I understand how difficult it was to get here. Those who made it here despite hardship and misfortune deserve to be well rewarded." She looks up as all of the people stand in front of them as the principal says, "Welcome to Hope Village." Young-ju narrates, "It was like being in a dream." The principal speaks, "Well done, you all." As a person in the crowd speaks, "This kid looks sick. Hurry, bring her in." Young-ju thinks of the outside world and the village as she narrates. Unlike the living hell outside, the village was full of warmth just like before the apocalypse. Tears stream down her coarse skin as Young-ju continues to narrate. "I brushed aside my concern and felt relief at the same time." She cries as she says, "Honey." Min-soo stands among the people as he looks back at her and says, "We made it. It's time for us to have a happy life again." She wipes her tears as she says, "Okay." Young-ju narrates, "My family returned to a happy everyday life after settling in Hope Village." Young-hee runs with her friends as Young-ju continues to narrate. Young-hee, who was weak, grew up healthy and strong enough to play with her friends. And my husband became the vice principal because he helped the village thrive. Min-soo stands with other villagers as they praise him. "That's my man. He knows how to read the map." He replies with a smile, "Come on, I know the way just because I have been there already." Young-ju continues to narrate as she guides the villagers. "Thanks to my family and the villagers, I was able to heal." Min-soo spots her from behind as she continues to narrate, "And I took the duty of looking after the newcomers to the village." That's when Min-soo grabs her from behind as he speaks, "What are you up to, my love?" He has lifted her up as she speaks, "What are you doing, Min-soo?" Min-soo hugs her as he says, "What?" "And simply hugging my wife." She giggles as she says, "Everyone is watching us. Come on." He laughs as he responds, "I know you like it." The newcomer watches them with an annoyed expression. Young-ju narrates, "But the crucial factor that changed my mind was." The scene cuts to the miracle ritual. The principal stands in the palm of a monster as he speaks to everyone. "Don't be afraid, everyone." Min-soo and Young-ju wear cloaks as the principal continues to speak. "If we dispel any doubts and truly unite as a family, I guarantee you eternal tranquility." He raises his arms as he yells with power and protection for our family. Everyone cheers as they chant, "I believe in you, principal." Young-ju also cheers in the crowd as well, "I believe in you." Young-ju continues to narrate, "The miracle he showed us felt like the only home that could keep my family safe. That's what I thought at the time." The scene cuts to later. Young-ju sits with her daughter when she says, "Mom." Young-ju responds, "Yeah, what is it?" As Young-hee asks, "Have you seen Young-jun today?" She answers, "Oh, I heard that his family left the village last night." That's when Young-hee asks, "Who told you that?" That's when she answers, "The principal told me." She becomes sad as she says, "Why couldn't he at least say goodbye to me?" That's when Young-ju's expressions change as she thinks to herself, "Come to think of it, it's been 8 months since we arrived and more people are leaving this village than expected." She becomes quiet as she thinks, "But why are they leaving this perfect place?" That's when a panting Min-soo slides the door open as he says, "Honey, can we talk?" The scene cuts to outside. They stand outside as Young-ju says, "What do you mean?" Min-soo holds her by her shoulders as he speaks, "I'm telling you, this is a dangerous place. We have to get out of here." She becomes confused as she asks, "But why? It's so sudden." He holds her tight as he speaks, "I saw the monsters and the dead bodies of the villagers who left the village in the basement." Still confused, she says, "Dead bodies in the basement." He jolts her as he yells, "We have to pack our stuff and leave this place now, or we could be next. Hurry." That's when she says, "No." Min-soo is shocked as he says, "What?" Young-ju furrows her eyebrows as she says, "Didn't you hear me? I said no." Still in shock, he asks, "But why?" She responds, "Let's say we make it out of here, but what next? Do you have any plans at all?" He is speechless as she continues to speak. "What about Young-hee and me? I don't want to put our lives on the line again." She shudders his hand away as she says, "If I have to face hell no matter where I go, then I'd rather live here." She turns her back on him as she says, "I'll take care of everything, so stay put." He is completely shaken as he can only say, "Honey." She walks away as she says, "This is the peace I've finally found. I will never return to that hell again. There should be no secrets in this village." And sure, Young-ju stands in front of the principal as she explains everything. She thinks to herself, the principal can solve this problem. The principal speaks, "Thank you, Young-ju. I know this wasn't easy for you, and I appreciate you telling me the truth. Please wait until I see you again with the vice principal." She cries as she speaks, "Thank you, dear principal. I will never forget the mercy you showed me today." "Thank you." Young-ju narrates, "If I hadn't told the principal." The scene cuts to her as tears stream down her face. She says, "No, it can't be." She is on her knees as her arm has been torn off. Young-ju narrates, "Then things would not have ended this way, right?" The scene rewinds as Young-ju continues to narrate, "When did it all go wrong? I thought we could be happy here." She stands with her husband and the instructor as she continues, "Was it the time I went down to the basement? Without a doubt." The scene shifts to her and her husband surrounded by monsters. She continues, "Should I have run away after seeing the monster?" Young-ju stands with her husband as she speaks gibberish in fear. She narrates, "Or is because I lacked faith in the principal." She narrates, "Why?" As the principal and the instructor stand in front of her. The principal smiles wickedly as he snaps his finger. That's when Young-ju's arm is torn apart by a monster. She is in shock when another monster stabs Min-soo. She looks back, her eyes wide. She narrates, "Why?" as monsters chomp on her arm, enjoying each bite. Blood squirts out her arm as she sits on her knees. Tears stream down her face as she says, "Min-soo." He groans on the ground as blood gushes out from his back. She screams, "Min-soo, you're bleeding. Please stay with me, Min-soo." She holds him as he groans, "Honey." Young-ju grabs her head as tears stream down her face and she speaks, "Why is this happening to us? I just wanted us to be happy. But how did it get this way?" That's when the principal speaks, "Young-ju, do you know the nature of a cuckoo bird?" Young-ju's body is trembling but then it stops. She turns around as she says, "I'm sorry." The scene cuts to a bird in a nest as the principal continues, "Cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. After the mother bird lays an egg and leaves, the nest owner raises that egg. And do you know what the chick does after it hatches? An egg falls as it crashes on the ground." He continues as he says, "It pushes the owner's eggs out of the nest to take over the entire nest. A baby cuckoo bird chirps as his foster mother comes to it." The principal continues to speak, "The adoptive mother bird, who doesn't have a clue, raises the chick with love. Even when it reaches maturity, it still has no trouble getting food because its adoptive parent continues to provide food. A mature cuckoo is being fed by his small foster mother, as the principal says. It survives like that until it leaves the nest. This is one of the reasons why I don't like cuckoo birds. Do you understand?" A scared and shaking Young-ju looks back as the principal says, "I raised you with all my faith because I believed we were family, but you dare to act like a cuckoo bird." He looks down at her, veins popping on his face in anger as he screams, "The rats who betrayed our faith no longer belong here in the village." Tears stream down her face, her heart beats rapidly. She gets on her knees as she begs, "I'm sorry. This won't happen again. It's all my fault that I couldn't convince my husband." She continues to beg, "I'll do anything you want, whether as your servant or slave. Anything. I will do anything for you, Mr. Principal." Min-soo lies in front of her clinging to life as she says, "Please save my husband." She repeats, "Please, please, Mr. Principal." That's when the instructor slaps her across the face and yells, "Shut up, you bitch." He begins beating her. He speaks as monsters surround them. "How can you ask for trust when you betrayed us once?" Min-soo crawls towards his wife as the instructor continues saying, "You ungrateful rats. We are the ones who gave you a happy life." That's when the principal says, "That's enough, Instructor Beak." The instructor sighs in disappointment before he turns around. He has a wicked smile on his face as he says, "Yes, sir." The principal speaks over her bloodied body, "Young-ju, your confession helped us deal with this problem. So, I'd like to give you one last chance." He drops a knife at her side. He looks down at her and says, "Kill that cuckoo bird. Then I'll believe you as a member of my family again." Her eyes shut in pain. Tears flow down her face as she grovels, "Mr. Principal, but that's..." He cuts her mid-sentence as he says, "If that's your response, then my hands are tied. We'll take good care of Young-ju's eyes grow wide as the principal continues to torment her. "Is that how you want things to end?" Monsters speak in the background, "Kill him. There's no way you can save him anyway. If you're going to kill him, give me his arm." Another monster laughs as he says, "I want his guts." The monsters watch as Young-ju holds the knife over her husband's head. She trembles as she says his name, Min-soo. He looks at her, his eyes lifeless. She trembles when he speaks, "Honey, it's okay." He musters all his strength as he continues, "Just do it. I'm okay." And he whispers something to her. That's when she cries, "Min-soo, I'm sorry," before stabbing him. He becomes lifeless as the president says, "Well done. I understand how difficult that was for you, but you made your choice." He grabs her by her shoulder as he creepily hugs her from behind and continues, "Welcome, Young-hoo. Welcome back home." So what's gonna happen next? What dark secrets still lie hidden in Hope Village? If you want to see the next part, comment below and give this video 1 million likes. Your comments will unlock the next chapter of this gripping story. I'll be reading all of your comments. You guys are the best.